3, 5 Live in the World Service. Sports report to come with Mark Chapman, who's here with us at the Stadium of Light on 5 Live. Handball against Torres, now Torres has taken the ball on long after the whistle and scooped it over Mignolet, and the ball's bounced behind. And I've seen a number of occasions where yellow cards have been produced for that sort of thing.
Do you know that the referee would be within his rights to do that, but I'm absolutely delighted in referees who don't do that. There's a difference between thumping the ball away and anger, and you're just away and you're not trying to waste a huge amount of time. I don't mind any referee not pulling out his card for any player in that situation.
3-1 Chelsea lead. After Sports Report on 5 Live, 6:06 today with Johnny Vaughan and Robbie Savage. And Ailey Barber can tell us about that second Inverness goal.
Yeah, it was Richie Foran, the team captain, who got the goal. Ball came across from the right-hand side, and Foran was at the back post. I'm not quite sure what part of his body he used to get the ball in the back of the net, but they all count, as they say. Inverness on the break again, and it's Billy Mackay 1-on-1 with the goalkeeper now. The defence have got back well there. It's Inverness 2, Hibs 0.
Another goal at Hillsborough. Peter Slater.
Could be a big goal for Sheffield Wednesday. John scored 12 minutes from time by Gary Medine, but it owed much to Jermaine Johnson with a powerful run on the break. Took the ball from halfway. He had players either side, decided to shoot. Very powerful shot which Tom Heaton couldn't hold, and Medine following up scored. Sheffield Wednesday 2, Bristol City 1.
So Saha comes on for Sunderland with Chelsea leading by 3-1, but Sunderland on top in this game at the moment. Larson off, Saha on. We'll have all of the football covered for you on 5 Live tomorrow, including the Manchester derby. We'll have commentary on the whole of Everton-Tottenham, and then the second half of West Ham-Liverpool after that. First half of West Ham-Liverpool is on Sports Extra, 5 Live Sports Extra. Free kick then for Sunderland. Hit long and forward into the Chelsea penalty area, headed down and cleared away by Mata. Sunderland 1, Chelsea 3. Another long pass forward from the halfway line from Gardner, headed out to McLean on the left hand side. McLean curling ball in, but straight into the gloves of the falling Czech who holds the ball.
Yeah, but it's so positive now from Martin O'Neill. I mean, he's stuck so many attack minded players out on that side just now, and it's whether they've got the creativity and whether they get the nous, and whether Chelsea actually go and break on them, because all the way through the second half, even when not playing brilliantly well, Chelsea have looked very sharp in the break.
So Sessegnon has dropped a little further back now, Pat, for Sunderland. Just gets a foot in there, and it's Saha and Wickham up front together. Louis Saha has got a very good goal-scoring record against Chelsea over the years. He scored 10 goals against Chelsea for his various clubs, including, remember, the very quick goal, the fastest goal in an FA Cup final in his Everton days. 3-1 to Chelsea here. This game not finished yet. What about Wigan QPR? Conor McNamara.
Wigan 2, Queen's Park Rangers 2. It's not the highest quality game you've ever seen, but it's very close, very edgy. Harry Redknapp has brought on Granero for Diakite in midfield. Another of his substitutes scored. Jibril Cisse briefly had QPR in front, but 2 goals from James McCarthy means it's Wigan 2, Queen's Park Rangers 2.
John Southall might be using a few of the same sort of words on Southampton Reading.
Yes, Southampton 1, Reading 0. This could be a key victory for Southampton, with Reading have squandered a couple of chances. McAnuff, good position, left hand side of the penalty area, curled it over the bar. Then Adam Lafondra headed wide from 6 yards out. Really good chance that. Southampton 1, Reading 0.
Frank Lampard launches a 25-yard shot that was close enough to Mignolet, but just pushed it away.
Yeah, I think maybe another free kick for Sunderland. The referee tried to give a little bit of
advantage,
but no, couldn't do.
And then Saha was fouled. Initially Wickham was fouled, then Saha was fouled by Ramirez, who's booked.
Just the substitutions seem to have changed a little bit in this game, because that head of steam that Sunderland got up, it's just calming down a little bit. Chelsea are beginning to see it out, and that obviously, since Frank Lampard's come in, he just kind of reads the dangers quite well.
Nottingham Forest now 2-0 up on Burnley, and it's Motherwell 3, Ross County 2. Just over 5 minutes to play plus added time. 3-1 to Chelsea, and the ball from the free kick flicked on just through to Petr Cech, who has the ball at his feet. Jonathan Ledgard will update us from the Emirates.
We're running the clock down here, or Arsenal are. They're 2-0 to the good. Mikel Arteta's 2 penalty, 1 in the first half, 1 in the second. West Brom trying hard, but there's no doubt who's the more contented manager, both with their hands shoved in their pockets. Mr. Wenger, 2-0.
And how is it now in Swansea, Andy Gillis?
It's absolutely brilliant. This has been actually probably the best game I've seen all season. Still Swansea 2, Norwich 4, but the chances continue. Meacher with a great effort would have scored, I think, on another day, just past the post. That would have got the deficit back to 1 with 7 minutes left to play. Swansea 2, Norwich 4.
I feel like I've heard Andy say that a couple of times this season, so he's seen some good games. Is it the best game you've seen this season so far, Pat Murphy?
Not the best game I've seen today. It's Villa 0, Stoke 0. Villa pressing in front of the Holt end, getting more and more frustrated. At the other end, though, Walters nearly nicked it. He went for a shot, a narrow angle, deflected for a corner, which he didn't get, much to his dismay. Villa 0, Stoke 0.
Huddersfield 1, Bolton 2 now, and Crawley 2, Shrewsbury 2. 3-1 Chelsea lead. Time running out for Sunderland. And hard though they have pressed and hard though they have tried, could be another day without any points for Sunderland. And I'm afraid the record is not looking very good.
No, it isn't. And, other teams catching up from behind, and before today they were only 1 point off the relegation places. It's there's no lack of effort from the players, and it's just a little bit of a shame that it comes in fits and starts. And every game they play, it seems fits and starts. They need to put together a really good 90 minutes, Sunderland, who've still just won twice in the Premier League all season. Back to Hillsborough and Peter Slater.
Where Bristol City have equalised for the second time. Once again a Sam Baldock penalty, this time for a handball, I think, against Miguel Lira. Andre Mariner right on the spot gave the kick, and a very powerful finish past Chris Kirkland. So twice he's brought them back. We have 4 minutes left for play at Sheffield Wednesday 2, Bristol City 2.
And AFC Wimbledon have equalised against the league's bottom club. It's Barnet 1, Wimbledon 1. Yellow card from Mata.
Long overdue. Has to be said, the amount of free kicks he's given away today, Juan Mata. And it's so unlike him. And it is the same Juan Mata I'm talking about.
Just a little tug and a free kick then for Sunderland inside their own half. 4 minutes plus added time to play. Martin O'Neill is getting agitated down here. The referee, rather wants to speak to Sessignon.
No, I think it's O'Shea and whoever he was pushing and shoving with.
Ramirez has been called over. No, Cahill is
keeper. Everyone.
Well, Martin O'Neill will be anxious here that the time is added on, and Martin O'Neill now putting his hands on his hips.
And apart from just the time being added on, you've actually got the game up at a pace that you wanted to get to, and this has killed it off a little bit. If the referee's doing the right thing now and calming it down, that's fair enough. If it was only a kick off, Peter Cech coming all the way up, it's maybe slightly surprising, but he is skipper, so fair enough.
Yep. So a free kick, that'll be taken by the Sunderland goalkeeper in orange, just about 10 yards away from where Benitez is trying to marshal his troops. Mignolet's free kick to the edge of the area, headed up by Ivanovic, ball nodded back in by McLean. Cahill heads it away on the edge of the box, and the ball is passed away by Chelsea towards Oscar. Danny Rose just gets the better of the Brazilian. And now Colback out to the right. Sessignon then to Gardner, who is now filling in at right back. Craig Gardner. Ball played right across from that side towards McLean on the Sunderland left here. McLean up against Mata. Goes one way, then the other. Plays it back to Rose. Rose curls the ball into the box. Cole with the header away. That will reach Gardner on the right-hand side. I think time's just going to run out on Sunderland in this game. Gardner can't reach it down the right, and it's cleared away by Bertrand to the halfway line. Another goal at Inverness. Ailey Barber.
Yeah, but again, it's for the home side. Inverness now looking to be holding that second spot in the SPL come tonight. The third goal coming from Billy Mackay, his fifth goal in the last 4 games. It was almost a carbon copy of the last one. Down the right-hand side, the cross in, and Billy Mackay in the middle of the box. Nobody near him to header it into the back of the net. It's Inverness 3, Hibs 0.
And another goal at Hillsborough. Peter Slater.
Minutes ago, Sheffield Wednesday were heading for victory. They're now heading for their 7th consecutive defeat. Third goal for Bristol City. Albert Adoma, free kick 25 yards out into the top corner. Sheffield Wednesday 2, Bristol City 3.
So Sunderland 1, Chelsea 3 as we head towards added time. I'll just run you through the latest scores in the Premier League if we get a chance. But Sunderland with the ball, it goes back into their own half. So Arsenal 2-0 up on West Brom. Still Aston Villa 0, Stoke 0. Southampton edging it 1-0 against Reading. It's Swansea 2, Norwich 4. And McLean down the left for Sunderland plays it right across the 6-yard box. It got a touch there from Ashley Cole, which it needed, because there were two Sunderland players arriving at the back post, and that took it away from Johnson, and Bertrand then wins a throw-in off him.
It was magnificent defending from Ashley Cole. It's a couple of times where it have been difficult balls to deal with. He does that better than just about anyone else.
And it is still Wigan 2, QPR 2 at the DW Stadium. It seems to... there seems an inevitability that Ashley Cole will leave for Paris Saint-Germain at the end of the season.
There certainly is a lot of discussion about it, but I've certainly not had it confirmed from anyone within Chelsea. But
I don't know to what extent it is that is official. But here's Wickham, who backheels it on the edge of the box. 4 minutes of added time to play, which we are now into. But I know he's had these ongoing ankle problems, but he will be a big player to...
he's a big player to miss. But having said that, Chelsea would say, they've got Ryan Bertrand there to fill in, but, there's very few players in the world that are quite as good as Ashley Cole at the moment in that position. I would suggest Winnerham plays for Everton just now, right enough.
I don't think they'd be the only club who'd be interested in him. Coventry 5, Walsall 1 now. We've had almost a minute of added time. Ball played through for Torres, but just a little bit too much on that, and it runs through to Mignolet, who's able to pick up a late red card at Villa Park. Pat Murphy.
Ryan Shotton, Stoke City, second book of offence, a little bit unlucky. Fabian Delph took a dive, he just clipped him. Don't think it was deliberate, but he's the lucky one. Shotton gets to leave early. Villa 0, Stoke 0.
All close for Sunderland to a second goal. Wickham with a shot and turn on the edge of the area.
I think it was a save.
Tipped wide.
Yeah. And if it is a save, which it looks to be, I think that's a fine save by Peter Cech. He's left his best moment to the 90th minute.
Really was a very good save, fully extended. Rangers have finally got a second goal against Stirling. They're 2-0 up. Corner to Sunderland. McLean drills this in low, but straight at Oscar, who's able to take it in his stride and clear it away downfield into an almost empty Sunderland half.
You don't often see that from Chelsea players, just lumping it into space when you know you've not got a player there. You expect to try and hold it.
It's now Huddersfield 2, Bolton 2. Equaliser for Huddersfield. Louise heads the ball away for Chelsea on the edge of the area. Plymouth 2-0 up on York. Sunderland once again coming forward, and another free kick. Gardner this time charged into by Ashley Cole, really, as he tried to go past him.
Well, he tried to clear the ball, Ashley Cole, but he nicked the ball away from him, and Ashley Cole couldn't get out of the way. But free kick once. Correct decision again for the referee, and on this occasion Larson's not on the field, so he can't take it.
I think we've got time for full time from John Southall at Southampton.
Well, it's finished Southampton 1, Reading 0. A vital win this for Southampton, and a jubilant St Mary's. Decisive goal from Jason Punchin, a very calm finish into the bottom right hand corner. Reading they'll miss rude chances, most notably from McAnuff and Adam Lafondra. Southampton out of the bottom 3, they've won 1-0.
Leicester have equalised against Barnsley. It's 2-2. This Sunderland free kick then. Gardner to take it, drills it against the crossbar, really rattled the bar, comes out to Colback, who volleys it wide and behind.
I think Cech may have got a little bit of that on that as well. Fantastic save for him, great free kick, and that just sums up Sunderland's luck.
Andy Gillis has seen another goal at Swansea.
Swansea 3, Norwich 4. Michu getting Swansea's third. Dyer's cross headed in at the far post. We're into added time.
It's finished Aston Villa 0, Stoke 0 at Villa Park. Preston 1, Crewe 3 is latest score. Still Sunderland 1, Chelsea 3, 5 live in the World Service. Rochdale 2, Exeter 3 is another latest score. Ball's out of play for a throw-in to Chelsea, and it seems Chelsea will see this one out as they take a throw down the right to Torres, who is dispossessed. And we're heading to Selhurst Park and Jackie Oatley.
There's a 90th minute equaliser for Blackpool, 2-2 now, just as Ian Holloway thought he was going to get one over on his former club, and it's the substitute Nua Dicko firing in after good work by Thomas. Crystal Palace 2, Blackpool 2.
Arsenal have beaten West Brom by 2-0 at the Emirates. More on that to come. But Pat Nevin, it would seem that Chelsea have got their first win in the Premier League since October, which for them is long overdue.
They've done enough today, not even a lot more than that, but when they've had to go for it, get the goals, they've went for it, played well and looked very, very sharp, but they haven't pushed themselves any further than that.
And for Sunderland, it looks like another defeat as McLean plays the ball across the box. but it bounces away and the full-time whistle goes in any case, and Martin O'Neill and Rafa Benitez shakes hands, and it's the second win of the week for Benitez and for Chelsea, and they will go to Japan tonight in good heart after this. A hard-fought 3-1 win, but for Sunderland, big battles to come. Final score here, Sunderland 1, Chelsea 3.
The Premier League live from the Stadium of Light on the BBC World Service.
And my thanks to our commentary team at the Stadium of Light, John Murray and Pat Nevin. We'll be back there in the next hour of the programme to get more thoughts from Pat after a victory for Chelsea, the first for Rafael Benitez in his brief Chelsea reign at the fourth time of asking in the Premier League. They have that victory today. A couple of goals from Fernando Torres, one from Juan Mata and Adam Johnson's goal in the end. Just a consolation for Sunderland. John was running you down some of the full times from the English Premier League. I'm looking at the monitors now in the Sports World studio, and I can see that all the games in the Premier League have now come to an end, and I can see Jason Punjan of Southampton celebrating with the fans. His goal gave Southampton a 1-0 victory over Reading today. We heard about that. It wasn't to be once again for Queen's Park Rangers. Though he thought maybe Gibril Cisse, who had given QPR a 2-1 lead, had given them a first victory of the season. It would have been at the 16th time of asking, but that equaliser from James McCarthy means it finished Wigan 2, Queen's Park Rangers 2. The wait goes on for that first victory of the season. That is now a very unwanted Premier League record for Queen's Park Rangers. Goalless, as Pat Murphy was telling us, at Villa Park between Aston Villa and Stoke. What a game at the Liberty Stadium. Andy Gillies said it was the best game he'd seen this season. It'd be hard to argue, really, with a full-time score of Swansea 3, Norwich 4. Incredible from Norwich today. 9 unbeaten now in the Premier League. Stephen Whittaker, Sebastian Bassong, the Cameroon defender, and Grant Holt giving them a 3-0 lead. Michu, though, turning into the buy of the season with a couple of goals. He's now scored 12 this season. He's out on his own as the top scorer in the Premier League. Jonathan de Guzman with a goal as well for Swansea, but Robert Snodgrass with a fourth for Norwich. A victory for them today. And Arsenal with a 2-0 victory over West Bromwich Albion. Mikel Arteta with both goals, both from the penalty spot. I think we want to take a look at Santi Cazorla's dive, some are saying, for that first penalty. No doubt about the second. Oxlade-Chamberlain brought down, and Mikel Arteta scoring. And he's only just sat down, but if we're mentioning Arsenal, I better talk to my guest, because Miguel Silvestre has sat in front of me now, the former France international defender, former Manchester United and Arsenal defender. Mikel won the Premier League 5 times, the Champions League winner as well. Played for Arsenal. Victory today for Arsenal. Much needed, wasn't it, Mikel?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I saw an interview from Mikel Arteta saying that if the team was going to win two games in a row, then the atmosphere will change in the dressing room, and the atmosphere around Arsenal in general will change, and they are about to do it. So it's good for the lads, and I know they don't want to be in this situation. A lot of criticizes on their shoulders, and I haven't seen the game, but I don't know.
Well, behind you, you can see the screens I have in the Sports World studio. The big screen over there had the Sunderland-Chelsea game on it. So the small screen's just right behind you had the Arsenal match on. So I was trying to keep across it as much as I possibly could. It sounded anyway from Jonathan Ledyard as a deserved victory. And it's interesting, West Bromwich Albion at home. It's a match that in the past we'd expect Arsenal to win, but it had become such significant, really, because of the poor form they've been in this season. Can you explain why they haven't been doing it at home?
I don't know. It's normally at the Emirates, Arsenal is doing well, and they've got possession of the ball. They control most of the games, but they've shown vulnerability at the back. Well, not only at the back, but generally they don't control the game as they used to. And teams are not afraid anymore. They take confidence, and they think, yeah, we can go to the Emirates and grab a good result. So that's what's been happening, and it was difficult for the team to cope with this.
Well, a much-needed victory for Arsenal today, and they got that over West Bromwich Albion. Much more from Mikel in the next hour of Sports World. He's here to talk about the Manchester derby, of course. We'll have all the reaction to that on the BBC World Service on Sunday, City against United, and we'll get his reaction on the rest of the games in the Premier League in the next hour of the programme. Let me bring you some more results now, and from the Championship, we heard about that very late equaliser for Blackpool against Crystal Palace, a goal for Ian Holloway's former club against his current one has meant it's just a point for Crystal Palace as they try to chase Cardiff in the Championship here in England. Elsewhere, Charlton 2, Brighton 2, Huddersfield 2, Bolton 2, Ipswich with a 3-0 win over Millwall, Leicester 2, Barnsley 2, Nottingham Forest 2, Burnley 0. Full-time, Middlesbrough have beaten Peterborough 3-2, a 3-2 victory for Bristol City over Sheffield Wednesday, and a 2-0 win for Hull over Watford. And in Germany, Bayern Munich have gone 11 points clear at the top of the Bundesliga after a 2-0 win at Augsburg. Thomas Müller and Mario Gomez with the goals for Bayern Munich. More on that in the next hour of the programme. Is this still a time, Mikel, that you enjoy getting the results coming in? You're lucky Manchester United haven't been playing today, else I could have asked you which team do you look out for first?
Yeah, I'm always looking for the results. I've been playing in different leagues, so I've got a lot to
there's Rennes, there's Internazionale, there's Werder Bremen, there's quite a few to get through. We'll focus on Manchester in the next hour, Mikel. Look ahead to the derby, find out what it's like to play in that and how Mikel thinks the match will go on Sunday, and of course much more reaction from the Premier League. We'll be back at the Stadium of Light to hear about Chelsea's victory over Sunderland, and the Premier League managers and players talk to the BBC. We'll hear from them in the next hour of the programme here on the BBC.
Football, the world's game on the BBC. Who's got your vote for BBC African Footballer of the Year 2012?
Demba Ba,
Eunice Belhanda,
Didier Drogba,
Christopher Katongo,
Yaya Toure.
Vote now online or on your phone by SMS text.
Everything you need to know to vote is online at bbc.com/African football.
Who are you cheering for?
BBC World Service. We report.
20 years ago, the first text message was sent. It's fair to say that SMS messaging revolutionized the way that we communicate.
We discuss.
The thing about text messaging is it's big business, and they reckon that by 2016 this will go up to about 9.4 trillion messages, generating $127 billion in revenue.
BBC World Service, the world's radio station.
This is Sports World from the BBC World Service. I'm Lee James with the headlines at 17 hours GMT. A revitalised Fernando Torres scores twice to give Chelsea their first league win under Benitez.
And there's Torres! That's an excellent finish. Torres scores in the Premier League. Right-footed, sends Mignolet the wrong way. Torres scores from the spot.
It finished Sunderland 1, Chelsea 3 in our live commentary game. Arsenal win for the first time in 4 to ease the pressure on Arsene Wenger.
Arteta now runs up against Myhill and scores. Relief as much as celebration around the Emirates, and Arsenal take the lead. This the chance for Mikel Arteta against Boaz Myhill to close the game out, and scores.
Queen's Park Rangers have set a new Premier League record. It's now 16 games without a win after a 2-2 draw at Wigan. And England's cricketers are on the brink of victory in the third test against India. We're back after the world news.
BBC News with David Austin. Almost 200 nations at UN climate talks in Qatar have agreed to extend until 2020 the only legally binding agreement for combating global warming, the Kyoto Protocol. The treaty had been due to expire by the end of this year. Peter Nettleship reports.
It only came after 12 days of tough haggling. It only covers 15% of global greenhouse gas emissions because several more countries opted out. And it is still only a temporary fix, aimed at paving the way for a much wider and more comprehensive treaty to be negotiated and adopted by 2015. But it is a legally binding pact. It extends the Kyoto Protocols on climate change to the year 2020. So it must be seen as a significant step forward on what has always been a long and tortuous path towards combating global warming.
The former Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi has confirmed that he'll stand in parliamentary elections next year as the head of his party. He told reporters he was worried about the impact of the economic policies being brought in by the current government. Alan Johnston reports.
Over the last few days, it became clear that Mr. Berlusconi would be attempting a comeback. and now he's confirmed it. Speaking to reporters in Milan, he said he was returning to the front line of party politics out of a sense of responsibility to the country. However, Mr. Berlusconi's many opponents will see his effort to return to power in a cynical light. They'll argue that he is simply intent on staying in the political game in order to be able to defend his personal, business and other interests.
The Egyptian military has warned of disastrous consequences if the rival political forces in the country fail to resolve their differences through dialogue. The statement was made on national television. From Cairo, John Line.
This is the first time the Egyptian military has expressed an opinion in the current crisis, though tanks are already stationed outside the presidential palace. The wording of the military statement immediately provoked fears that the military would intervene and take power, as it did after the fall of Hosni Mubarak. Sources close to the military have been quick to stress that is not about to happen, and a senior official from the Muslim Brotherhood also welcomed the statement, describing it as balanced and neutral. However, state media have already reported that President Morsi may be about to give the military new powers to help the police maintain order.
Tens of thousands of Palestinians have given a rapturous reception to the leader of Hamas, Khaled Mishal, at a rally in Gaza to mark the 25th anniversary of the militant movement. Addressing the crowd from a stage with a huge model of a Hamas rocket towering behind it, Mr. Mishal ruled out any territorial concessions or recognition of Israel and called for Palestinian unity. It's Mr. Mishal's first visit to Palestinian territory in nearly 40 years. World news from the BBC. Pakistan's President Asif Ali Zardari has visited the Pakistani schoolgirl Malala Yousafzai at a hospital in Britain. Malala was shot in the head by the Taliban for her campaign to promote girls' education in northwest Pakistan. She was flown from Pakistan to a hospital in Birmingham for specialist medical care in October. Thousands of people have since signed a petition calling for her to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. The former South African President Nelson Mandela has been admitted to hospital in Pretoria. The office of the current president, Jacob Zuma, said Mr. Mandela was doing well and there was no cause for alarm. Andrew Harding reports from Johannesburg.
The 94-year-old veteran of South Africa's struggle against apartheid is undergoing tests at a hospital in Pretoria. There's no information yet about what prompted his admission today. The presidency said only that Mr. Mandela would receive medical attention from time to time, consistent with his age. It's almost 2 years since Mr. Mandela's unexpected hospitalisation with a respiratory infection triggered a major health scare. In February of this year, the presidency warned the public in advance that Mr. Mandela was undergoing abdominal surgery.
North Korea says it might reconsider the schedule for a planned rocket launch. Earlier this week, Pyongyang said it would carry out a long-range rocket test between the 10th and 22nd of December, after a similar test failed in April. No specific reasons for a possible postponement have been given, but experts say preparations for the launch may have been delayed by a heavy snowfall. Representatives from the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo and the M23 rebels are gathering in the Ugandan capital Kampala for peace talks. A week ago, the rebels withdrew from the key eastern city of Goma, but threatened to retake the city if their demands were not met. More than 500,000 people have fled their homes amid the unrest since the rebels mutinied from the Congolese army in April. Those are the latest stories from BBC News.
On radio, online and on mobile, this is Sports World on the BBC World Service.
This is Lee James with the top stories from the BBC Sports Centre at 17:06 GMT. A revitalised Fernando Torres scores twice to give Chelsea their first league win under Rafa Benitez.
And there's Torres! That's an excellent finish. Torres scores in the Premier League. Right-footed, sends Mignolet the wrong way. Torres scores from the spot.
It's now 16 games without a win from the start of the season, a new Premier League record, an unwanted one for Queen's Park Rangers after they draw 2-2 at Wigan. Arsenal win for the first time in 4 games to ease the pressure on Arsene Wenger.
Arteta now runs up against Myhill and scores. Relief as much as celebration around the Emirates, and Arsenal take the lead. This the chance for Mikel Arteta against Boaz Myhill to close the game out, and scores.
And Southampton deliver the knockout punch to Reading, while Norwich are unbeaten in 9 after a win at Swansea. Aston Villa and Stoke had to settle for a goalless draw as they share the points at Villa Park. Elsewhere, England's cricketers are on the brink of victory in the third test at Eden Gardens in Kolkata. India lead by 32 runs going into the final day with 1 second innings wicket remaining. Also in this hour, we'll be joined once again by the former Manchester United defender Mikel Sylvester, ahead of the Manchester derby at the Etihad on Sunday. We'll review the remarkable basketball record of the LA Lakers star Kobe Bryant after he became the youngest player in the NBA history to hit 30,000 career points. And they've shared the ring for 36 rounds over their careers, but there is still more to come. Manny Pacquiao will meet Juan Manuel Marquez in Las Vegas later. The 4th time the pair have met. We'll be live in Vegas ahead of that fight. All that to come in this hour on Sports World after the latest classified football results read by James Alexander Gordon.
Barclays Premier League. Arsenal 2, West Bromwich Albion 0. Aston Villa 0, Stoke City 0. Southampton 1, Reading 0. Sunderland 1, Chelsea 3. Swansea City 3, Norwich City 4. Wigan Athletic 2, Queen's Park Rangers 2. N-Power Championship. Charlton Athletic 2, Brighton and Hove Albion 2. Crystal Palace 2, Blackpool 2. Derby County 3, Leeds United 1. Huddersfield Town 2, Bolton Wanderers 2. Ipswich Town 3, Millwall 0. Leicester City 2, Barnsley 2. Nottingham Forest 2, Burnley 0. Peterborough United 2, Middlesbrough 3. Sheffield Wednesday 2, Bristol City 3. Watford 1, Hull City 2. Wolverhampton Wanderers against Birmingham City, late kick-off. League 1, Brentford 3, Milton Keynes Dons 2. Bury 0, Leyton Orient 2. Carlisle United 1, Sheffield United 3. Colchester United 0, Oldham Athletic 2. Coventry City 5, Walsall 1. Crawley Town 2, Shrewsbury Town 2. Hartlepool United 0, Stevenage 2. Preston North End 1, Crewe Alexandra 3. Scunthorpe United 1, Bournemouth 2. Swindon Town 1, Doncaster Rovers 1. Tranmere Rovers 2, Portsmouth 2. Yeovil Town 0, Notts County 0. League 2, Barnet 1, AFC Wimbledon 1. Bradford City 1, Torquay United 0. Bristol Rovers 0, Dagenham and Redbridge 1. Fleetwood Town 0, Southend United 0. Northampton Town 2, Cheltenham Town 3. Oxford United 1, Aldershot Town 1. Plymouth Argyle 2, York City 0. Port Vale 0, Chesterfield 2. Rochdale 2, Exeter City 3. Rotherham United 1, Gillingham 2. Wycombe Wanderers 2, Morecambe 2. Clydesdale Bank Scottish Premier League. Heart of Midlothian 2, Aberdeen 0. Inverness Caledonian Thistle 3, Hibernian 0. Kilmarnock 1, Celtic 3. Motherwell 3, Ross County 2. And finally, St Mirren 1, St Johnstone 1.
James, thank you very much indeed. So in this hour of Sports World, all the reaction to come from the English Premier League. Arsene Wenger, Rafa Benitez is talking to the BBC at the moment. We'll hear from the Chelsea manager in this hour of the programme. Harry Redknapp will get some reaction to Queen's Park Rangers going 16 games without a win at the start of the season. The last 3 of them have been down to Harry Redknapp. 3 draws for him. And of course, all the rest of the scores from across Europe. In Germany's Bundesliga, goals from Thomas Muller and Mario Gomez helped Bayern Munich win 2-0 at Augsburg. They go 11 points clear at the top of the table. Despite taking the lead, the reigning champions Borussia Dortmund lost 3-2 at home to Wolfsburg to stay in 3rd place. Bas Dost with the goal for Wolfsburg. 4th place Schalke also lost. They went down 3-1 at Stuttgart. It finished Freiburg 1, Greuther Fürth 0, Nuremberg 2, Fortuna Düsseldorf 0, and 5th place Eintracht Frankfurt take on Werder Bremen in the late game. That'll have interest for Mikel Sylvester, who's with me in this hour of the programme, the former Manchester United and France international defender. We'll be be talking about the Premier League and giving his thoughts on the Manchester derby, which is still to come, of course, this weekend. But our live commentary game on the BBC World Service and bbcworldservice.com finished Sunderland 1, Chelsea 3. Here's Sports World's Match in a Minute with commentary from John Murray.
Hazard in the full-back position up against Bardsley. Crosses from the left. And there's Torres! That's an excellent finish. Torres has taken responsibility here, having already scored in the game. Right-footed, sends Mignolet the wrong way. Torres scores from the spot. Torres with a chance to shoot, hits the post, comes out to Mata. Mata buries it, and it's 3-0 to Chelsea. Johnson into the path of Larsson. This is good from Sunderland. Larsson's cross, headed away by Louise. Runs to Sunderland though. Then McLean, and Johnson scores brilliantly with a dipping, curling shot that Petacek was completely bamboozled by. Johnson, who hits it and check, goes to his left and gets his palms to it to push it round the post. Ramirez is it through to Torres, right side of the area. Torres is onside. Torres squares it, but O'Shea gets there, and McLean down the left for Sunderland plays it right across the 6-yard box. They've got a touch there from Ashley Cole. Gardner to take it, drills it against the crossbar, really rattled the bar.
The Premier League from the BBC.
So a 3-1 victory for Chelsea then in our live commentary game. Let's go back to the Stadium of Light and speak to the former Chelsea player Pat Nevin, who was part of our BBC commentary team today. Mikel Sylvester is with me as well. But Pat, it's probably not going to win over too many of those Chelsea fans, but has there ever been a more vital win in Rafa Benitez's career, I wonder?
Certainly for the pressure that he's been under. He's not felt that for a while anyway, and there seems to be a little bit of a release from him at the moment. He looked under pressure, certainly the first couple of games he was in at Chelsea. The reaction of the fans was extremely negative. Well, for the vast majority of fans, not all the fans, but the vast majority was negative. There seems to me to be a little calming down of that at the moment, and that always comes with any manager. If you go and win some games, it'll have an effect on the Chelsea fans. We watched how Sam Allardyce come in at West Ham. He wasn't wanted, but they started doing well, and he's been forgiven for being Sam Allardyce, really. And also the same of Alan Pardew up at Newcastle. He was certainly not wanted up there, but good season, and then much loved by the Newcastle fans. I'm not sure if Rafa's ever going to be loved, but more performances of that, like that, and also getting goals out of Fernando Torres. John Murray was saying there, 4 goals in 2 games from Fernando Torres. Unlucky not to get a hat-trick today, hitting the crossbar as we've seen as well. So it's looking quite good for Chelsea, but this isn't a team at the moment, looking at what I've seen today, that's going to go and challenge Manchester United. Mikel will be delighted to hear from me. But certainly a side that they can get up in that top 4, and I think that's the aim for Rafa between now and the end of the season.
Well, you saw the game today, Pat, and you saw Fernando Torres. There'll be many people listening around the world will say, well, hang on a minute, he scored a couple of goals against the Danish side Nordsjælland, a couple of goals against Sunderland, who were struggling in the Premier League. It's not, say, he's totally back just yet, but is Benitez starting to get the best out of him? And if he is, how's he managing to do it?
Well, he's pushing it to say he's getting the best out of him, but certainly of what Fernando Torres has on offer at the moment, which isn't what he had before, he's getting the best of that, because what he's doing, he's making the team play forward slightly quicker. Now, that's not about lumping the ball up quickly. If you play the ball out of defence, you play quickly in the midfield, then quickly forward. Now, if that means a very quick pass along the ground forward, or that means moving at pace, which Chelsea do with the ball at their feet, such as Hazard particularly, and Mata, and today Moses, then that helps Fernando Torres, because good defenders, if you give them time and you take time, they get the positions right. Any centre-half will tell you time and time again, the last thing they need is a quick movement from a player, no time to readjust, and that's what Fernando Torres lives on, or has lived on his whole career. So that's what Rafa Benitez wants to happen again. Quick movement from the back, and make sure that half a yard that he makes isn't lost by slowing the play down.
Now, Mikel, I know you'll say, as players, you know, you win together as a team, you lose together as a team, but you're a defender, come on. If there's a striker who isn't scoring the goals, is there an element there where you do get a bit frustrated? And do you think that maybe has happened at Chelsea when Torres hasn't been delivering?
Yeah, obviously you expect your main striker to perform and to score goals. It's been difficult for him since he moved to Chelsea. I'm not sure why. He's not that bit of pace, and I think he's a bit stiff when he's running. He's not that fluidity he used to have when he was in Spain when he first came to Liverpool. I don't know where that gone. I wonder if there is that symptom of Shevchenko also. Remember him coming to Chelsea and losing his quality. So as a defender and all the players, you want your striker to do well. So you want to pass the ball well to him, and like we say, if you carry the ball too much and he's running out of space and he can't make any difference.
Okay, so the defenders do say, come on, get us a few goals. Just a final thought from you, Pat. I mean, it's the Club World Cup next for Chelsea. Ulsan Hyundai of South Korea and Monterrey of Mexico are their next opponents in the semi-finals of that competition. Is that going to be good for Benitez and Chelsea? A chance to get a trophy or a bit of an unwanted distraction now they've got this first win?
In some ways, both, it has to be said. I mean, really, they could be doing with trying to stay in the coattails of United and City. But they're not going to get an opportunity to do that. They're going to be away. So if you're in a competition, you might as well be in it to win it. And I suspect Rafa would like to get some silverware. He's won this competition before, and he would like to win it again so that he can say whatever happens, however long he lasts, be it 1 year or 1 month or one more day, he would like to walk away from this job having brought home some silverware as well. So he will have a right good go at it. But one other thing I would say, it gives him an opportunity to try a few different things out. So don't be totally surprised if you get one or two unusual things happening, like David Luiz getting another opportunity, like he did during the week, playing the sitting midfield role. I thought he looked quite good in that area. He may well get an opportunity in this championship when he goes over. But in the end, the big thing is, enjoy it, try and win it, but do not come back exhausted and do not come back with any more injured players.
We'll keep an eye on Chelsea's performances at the Club World Cup. Pat, thank you very much for joining us live on Sports World. Let's hear from Rafa Benitez now, thrilled to get that first victory under his belt.
Yeah, I think that we were working very hard these days, and we wanted to be ready. We were ready. It was a good game, a great performance, and a lot of people coming here. It's a long trip, so I think that I'm really pleased for everyone.
You must be delighted for Fernando Torres to get 2 goals.
Delighted for the team, delighted for the club, for the fans, for everyone that was here, and obviously Fernando scoring goals is good for us because he's the striker, but still I think that we have to give credit to all the team because they were doing a very, very good job.
What has changed for Fernando Torres? 2 goals in midweek and 2 goals again today. Is confidence back? Is that what it's about?
He's doing well because the team is helping him. So I said before that if we create more chances, he will score more goals. And then you could see today that the team was in control for a long time. Maybe the injury of Oriol Romeo changed a little bit our shape, and then we have to keep working hard. Obviously, they were pushing, the fans, they were pushing, so it was more difficult. But at the end, I think it was a deserved victory.
That's Rafa Benitez with the BBC's Damien Johnson. Mikel Silvestre is with me. I mean, are players affected by pressure on managers? We've got Rafa Benitez. We're going to hear from Arsene Wenger in just a moment. 2 managers, the media are saying, are under pressure. Obviously, for Benitez, for going to Chelsea in the first place, the fans didn't take to him. Wenger, because it's been so long without a trophy and they've been in poor form this season. But does that filter through to the players at all? Do you ignore it?
No, you don't ignore it because you read papers, you watch the news, and you know what's happening to the club and the pressure that the manager has on his shoulders. And as a player, you just expect your manager to have the same way of managing the team, and he wants a player to do their best. So you don't see that as a bad effect on the team.
Do you notice a difference, though? I mean, Arsene Wenger, he'll have been talking to his players after the match. We're going to hear what he's had to say to the BBC. Does that change? Can you sense a change when they've got pressure on their shoulders?
Normally you shouldn't.
Was Arsene always the same, no matter what the result, then?
Yeah, I mean, big clubs, big pressure, big games all the time. You need to win, you need to perform and get the points. So it's always the same when it comes to the likes of Arsenal, Chelsea, United, City, and Liverpool.
Well, we don't know what he's had to say to his players. This is what he's had to say to the BBC. Arsene Wenger admitted that Arsenal did get the benefit of the doubt with their first penalty decision today.
A little bit, yes, but I just spoke to Cazorla. He told me he touched him, but maybe was not. I don't know. I haven't seen it again, but maybe we were a bit lucky there.
And the second one, West Brom felt there was a push on the fullback Popov before Oxlade-Chamberlain was fouled. Did you see that one?
No, I didn't see that.
Overall, pleased that you've got the points, though, and the fans were behind the team today.
Yeah, they were very, very strongly behind the team. That's what you want when the team is a bit in doubt, you know. it's very important that they feel the support of the fans. They did that very well today.
And among the fans today, Thierry Henry again, constant speculation, but with the African Cup of Nations coming up, is he likely to come into your thoughts once more?
I haven't thought about it at all yet, and we have now a game on Tuesday. After that, we have time to think about that.
Interesting. There's a smile on your face when he said he didn't see that second decision.
Yeah, managers see what they want to see.
Maybe turn a blind eye now and again. Arsene Wenger happy with that victory. Is he still the man for Arsenal? It's been, 7 years now without a trophy? Is he still the man?
He's the man as long as the owners are happy with what he's producing. He's bringing a lot of profit for the clubs, and everybody knows that with the policy they've got the last few years, they can't compete for the title. So they are there qualifying for the Champions League every year. So that's a target for the club.
And Thierry Henry, would he be a welcome addition? Would he help this Arsenal side?
Yeah, he would definitely, because especially with the loss of Alex Song and Robin van Persie, you need players with character in the dressing room, and even if it's for a short spell, I think it would be good for the players to have Thierry in the dressing room.
We're looking at the top 10 trends on Twitter around the world. COYG is trending at the moment. Come on, you Gunners, that stands for, after Arsenal's victory today. And you on Twitter, Mikael?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter.
You're not trending, well, not on my list at the moment anyway. But I can tell you that Cazorla is trending at the moment after that penalty, which Arsene Wenger said was perfectly fine, the foul on him. And what else is trending at the moment around the world? Pirates is trending. The Soweto rivals Kaizer Chiefs and the Orlando Pirates finished 1-1 in the South African Premier League derby. 87,000 were watching at Soccer City in Johannesburg. We'll be there in 6 weeks' time. Is it really only 6 weeks now until the opening match of the Africa Cup of Nations, South Africa against Cape Verde? And Michu is trending at the moment. He scored his 11th and 12th goals of the season. Swansea, though, lost 4-3 to Norwich. What a buy he's been. $3.2 million. Michu was signed by Swansea. 12 goals this season. Incredible.
Dollars, you said?
Yeah, in dollars.
All
yeah.
right.
Around £2 million.
Currency, okay. Yeah, it's a fantastic buy. You don't expect players like that to come in the Premier League and do so well. It's a difficult league to adapt, and maybe it's a surprise for all the defenders. But now I think everybody is aware, so it's gonna be a difficult task.
Let's try and get Mikael trending on Twitter around the world, shall we? Go and have a search for him. I think you'll be able to find him. See if we can get him trending by the end of Sports World. More reaction to come from the Premier League, and of course we're going to look ahead to the really big match on Sunday. The last time City met United, the world's focus was on Manchester. It was described as the biggest game in Premier League history. That was back in April. United travelled to the Etihad Stadium with a 3-point lead that day over their rivals, but an inferior goal difference. We all know that Vincent Kompany's goal sealed the victory for City and ultimately the title. Well, the two teams are in the same position again, so who's going to come out on top this time?
Mario Balotelli has made it Manchester United 0, Manchester City 1.
Derby games are notorious for surprises. It's going to be difficult, it's going to be a hard game for us, but we're capable of beating anyone.
And he tucks it underneath De Gea, and it's into the net, and it's 5-1 to Manchester City at Old Trafford. 5-1. Well, unprecedented scenes at Old Trafford. The blue corner cannot believe this. Manchester United 1, Manchester City 6.
They can lose because they have 3 points more, we have 3 points less, we can't lose. But it's a derby, everything can happen like last year.
Corner kick is taken, headed in! Headed in by Vincent Kompany, the captain of Manchester City!
We've won leagues, we've been 12 points behind, and we've lost a league, but 11 points ahead. You can never be sure.
I think that they are better than us in this moment. 2 years that we play together, and they used to play this game for the title race for 20 years. I think that this is normal. They have a small advantage on us.
The last kick of the game is from the man who scored the only goal. Vincent Kompany, the Manchester City captain, has settled this match, and City have beat United by 1-0.
So we know last season it went City's way then. Now United have the advantage this time, once again a 3-point lead over City at the top of the Premier League going into the match at the Etihad Stadium on Sunday. I noticed, Mikel, that Chris Smalling described it as the biggest derby in football. What is it like to play in? Because when you were playing in those games, City of course weren't challenging you for the titles at the time.
No, there wasn't, and it was still a derby. And
still mattered
a lot. Yeah, still mattered a lot.
More for the fans, did you think, on those occasions? Because you were here in Manchester, you would have known how desperate they were to get one over their City rivals.
Yeah, the fans, people who work at the club, and for the players who are from Manchester, the likes of Scholes, Giggs and Neville's, but it was really important to win that game.
Tough to come out on the losing side. Tough for a 4-1 defeat. Would have been a tough one, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
3-1 defeat would have been tough, wouldn't it, in 2006, maybe?
Yeah, it was.
There were many victories, I'm sure, as well, which we could go through. But you're training with Manchester United once again at the moment, aren't you? What has it been like being back with the boys then at Old Trafford?
Well, it's a real pleasure for me to get up in the morning and know that I'm going to be involved in training, because it's top-level football and I enjoy it a lot.
You were saying you've got to go early to bed, though, because they're competitive, aren't they?
Yeah, they are competitive. Training is tough, and no matter if I'm under contract or not, if I want to be involved, I've got to be fit.
So what is that? Give us an insight then. What are they saying about this derby match on the training field? What have they been talking about this week?
No, the thing is, everybody is trying to get the point, and not 1 point, 3 points, but the tactic right. Those games they play, you win, you lose, you draw, on details, and that's what has been focused on this week.
And maybe on the defensive side of things, as a United defender yourself, to watch them concede 3 goals against Reading. Alex Ferguson was fuming with what had happened, called it the worst display of defending this season. They'd expect a bit more, wouldn't you, really, from United? How are they going to go about changing that?
Well, there was a combination of both. Really, Reading was very good on set pieces, and the Reds on the other side didn't defend really well.
Is it the fact that there's been different personnel in the defence? Nemanja Vidic hasn't been a solid presence in the defence this season. We've had Smalling and Jones coming back in recent weeks, but they haven't been there from the start of the season. Is that what you can put it down to, maybe?
I think you can find a lot of excuses, but at this level, if you're not fully committed, you play against players who are top, and you give 1% away, and you get punished. So I think it has been the case too many times this season, really.
Where do you think this one's going to be won or lost then? Because if the defending is suspect at all, then players like Balotelli and Dzeko and Aguero are going to find goals, aren't they? Where do you think this game will be won or lost on Sunday?
I think you win games in midfield, and United's been doing well this season. So we will see. I think City is a bit behind. It's only 3 points, so it's going to be a tight game. I see a draw or a victory away for the Reds, only because I support the Reds, but no, to be fair, I see a draw.
Yeah, you have to say that, don't you? You're still training with them. If you say anything else, they'll be on to you. Formidable home record, though, City have got, haven't they? To go there and knowing they haven't lost for a couple of years now, that is something that's on their side, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's not impressive stadium, but City's been doing well. They've got immense talent in the dressing room now, and you can see why they won the league that season.
Caroline Barker will have all the reaction on Sunday on Sports World from 16 hours GMT. There's going to be a lot of City fans wanting to remind Mikel if it goes their way.
You might have a half-decent guest in Mikel with you in the studio, but tomorrow I've got more than Mikel. I've got 3 City fans and 3 Manchester United fans battling it out in all the reaction to the derby match tomorrow from 18 hours GMT in Sports World. Have your say. And in addition to that, just a small addition to that, we've got West Ham Liverpool commentary from the Premier League. So join me from 18 hours GMT for Sports World, have your say. But before that, 16 hours GMT for all that commentary and tea, biscuits and chat galore. What more could you want?
Now, Mikel, I know you're in the red corner, but you nearly joined Manchester City, didn't you? Is this true?
I did. It's funny football. I was in the middle of the medical and had a phone call from Arsene Wenger, and come down to Manchester, to Arsenal, so I went.
Could you have done it? Could you have gone from City to United?
No, after when I sat down and I signed my contract for Arsenal, I was like, yeah, that was a good choice, because otherwise it would have been difficult to leave back there.
Of course, you'd have gone United to City, but yeah, you went to Arsenal in the end. Mikel is with us. We'll talk more about the Manchester derby, get some more reaction to the English Premier League. This is Lee James on the BBC World Service, 17:31 GMT.
Still to come on Sports World.
So much more reaction then from the Premier League, and we'll be live to Las Vegas for the fight between Manny Pacquiao against his old rival Juan Manuel Marquez.
He need to prove something, because he never accept that he lost the fight. So if I could have a chance, why not? And I will grab that opportunity.
And across to Los Angeles as well, where Kobe Bryant is breaking records in the NBA. That's all after the latest BBC News with Valerie Sanderson.
Almost 200 nations at UN climate talks in Qatar have agreed to extend until 2020 the only legally binding agreement for combating global warming, the Kyoto Protocol. The treaty had been due to expire by the end of this year. Peter Nettleship reports.
It only covers 15% of global greenhouse gas emissions because several more countries opted out. And it is still only a temporary fix, aimed at paving the way for a much wider and more comprehensive treaty to be negotiated and adopted by 2015. But it is a legally binding pact. It extends the Kyoto Protocols on climate change to the year 2020. So it must be seen as a significant step forward on what has always been a long and tortuous path towards combating global warming.
The former Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi has confirmed that he will stand in parliamentary elections next year at the head of his party. Mr Berlusconi told reporters in Milan he was returning to the front line of party politics out of a sense of responsibility. But opponents argue he's making a comeback in order to be able to defend his personal business and other interests. The Egyptian military has warned of disastrous consequences if the rival political forces in the country fail to resolve their differences through dialogue. The statement was made on national television. From Cairo, John Lyne.
The wording of the military statement immediately provoked fears that the military would intervene and take power, as it did after the fall of Hosni Mubarak. Sources close to the military have been quick to stress that is not about to happen. And a senior official from the ruling Muslim Brotherhood also welcomed the statement, describing it as balanced and neutral. However, state media have already reported that President Morsi may be about to give the military new powers to help the police maintain order.
The former South African President Nelson Mandela has been admitted to hospital in Pretoria. The office of the current president, Jacob Zuma, said his admission was for tests and that the 94-year-old was doing well and there was no cause for alarm. And tens of thousands of Palestinians have given a rapturous reception to the leader of Hamas, Khaled Mashal, at a rally in Gaza to mark the 25th anniversary of the militant movement. It's Mr Mashal's first visit to Palestinian territory in nearly 40 years. Now back to Lee James and Sports World.
Valerie, thank you very much indeed. Here's the story of the day from the Premier League. Fernando Torres scores twice to give Chelsea their first league win under Benitez.
And there's Torres. That's an excellent finish. Torres scores in the Premier League. Right-footed, sends Mignolet the wrong way. Torres scores from the spot.
It finished Sunderland 1, Chelsea 3 in our commentary game. Queen's Park Rangers are still looking for their first league win of the season. It's now 16 games without a victory, a new Premier League record. They drew 2-2 at Wigan. Arsenal beat West Brom 2-0 with 2 penalties.
Maybe was not. I don't know. I haven't seen it again.
And the second one, West Brom felt there was a push on the fullback pop-off before Oxlade-Chamberlain was fouled. Did you see that one?
No, I didn't see that.
Southampton beat Reading 1-0. Norwich unbeaten in 9 after a 4-3 win at Swansea. Aston Villa and Stoke finished goalless.
The Premier League from the BBC.
So we're still hoping to get some reaction from Harry Redknapp to 16 games without a victory for Queen's Park Rangers this season. Elsewhere across Europe, Bayern Munich are 11 points clear at the top of the Bundesliga in Germany after a 2-0 win over Augsburg. Atalanta are leading Parma by a 0-0 in Italy's Serie A. There's a full-time result from Spain's Primera Division, and Real Sociedad have drawn 1-1 at home to Getafe. Fifth place Malaga are leading Granada by a 0-0 after around 30 minutes of that match. More reaction from the Premier League will be in Los Angeles and Las Vegas for basketball and boxing before the end of the programme. And with me in the Sports World studio is this man.
Free kick to Manchester United. Taken by Giggs and headed in by Silvestre at the far post. Ryan Giggs will take a Manchester United corner kick, and it goes. Another one from Silvestre. Would you believe it?
Scoring twice against Liverpool, Mikel. And a defender as well. What a moment.
Yeah, amazing. I can't believe it myself. Still can't. No, it was a great night. It was for the return of Rio after his ban, and I don't think Liverpool was in good shape at that time. We didn't really play well that night, but we got a good result.
How much do you savour goals as a defender?
Sorry?
How much do you savour scoring a goal? It's so special because it doesn't happen that often?
Yeah, it's unexpected. It's not something I work on, and it's always something special, yeah. You really enjoy it, yeah.
It must be great when you've scored a goal to come out and looking at the screens here in the Sports World studio, seeing some of the players talking to the BBC. You'll hear from them on our Audio Boo channel and on the BBC World Service over the next few hours or so. But when you're in front of the microphone there, you've played, hopefully you've played well if you're talking to someone, but maybe it hasn't gone so well for you. How often have you been totally honest and said what you really thought, or do you have to sort of rein it back a little bit in these interviews afterwards with the media?
You have to hold back and keep some of the feelings for yourself, otherwise you start being silly, especially after the game. Your head is still hot, boiling from what happened, and I've been saying stupid things sometimes, and you regret it, so you have to be careful with what you're saying.
Do you know you're going to do the interviews before the match, or do you get selected after the game?
No, you get selected after the game, so you're not prepared, and nobody's prepared really. The players, they just get on with their job as a football player, but when it comes to media, we're not ready at all, so that's why we're not the best at it.
Have you got better? Do you enjoy it more now you're sat here in the studio?
I try to, with the age also, you see things differently, and I'm French, so my English is okay, so now I'm more comfortable than I used to.
Is it sometimes easier when you're talking not in your native language? Can you often get away with saying things if you were speaking in French after a match? You know, are we going to get a different response from you, maybe?
No anymore. I think you get less than if I was talking in French, yeah. Still, I'm missing some vocabulary.
You're doing very well. You said you're training again at Manchester United. What's the next step for you then? Because you were going to play in India. Is that still the case?
No, it's not. Well, it's not over yet. I hope this will go through, but if not, I'm going to be looking at other options in England or abroad in the MLS, for example.
So maybe the MLS, but it's Dodsal FC, wasn't it, in India, that they were potentially the club in January, the new league they're setting up with a lot of names that we would recognise. Robert Pires, I think, was involved in that as well, wasn't it?
That was different, so I'm not sure whether they're going to start in the second division or in the first division. That's still in the air, so that's why it's not moving forward.
But you still want to play, you still want a club if it's the MLS, or maybe here in England, could you still do a job in the Premier League, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. When I see, especially I've got inspiration with Ryan Giggs and Paul Scholes, they are a bit older than me and they're still going, so as long as you have the anger for the game and you want to perform, then you give yourself a chance. And yeah, after you're going to miss it if you stop suddenly and saying to yourself, well, I'm tired now.
We've been talking about when to retire on Sports World today with Sachin Tendulkar coming towards the end after 23 years in cricket. I tell you, if you go to India, you're going to have to get into cricket. Are you a fan of cricket?
Not at all.
You can't go to India and not be a fan of cricket. Oh, we'll have to have a chat afterwards, and I'll run you through a few pointers,
right.
In case you get the club in January. But we're talking about Sachin Tendulkar after 23 years. When is it time to retire? As a sportsman, it must be an incredibly difficult decision to say, that's it for me now. I'm not going to do something I've done the whole of my life.
Yeah, it's difficult. I'm not there yet, but after talking with a lot of players, they say, if you can, if you have the chance and your body still feel okay, then carry on until you can, because after there is nothing else that will replace what you've been doing for so long.
Do you mentally prepare yourself for that day? Are you ready for it?
Yeah, I'm ready for it. The older I become and the more ready I am. So you just have to find something else to do that will brings you something special if you are lucky to find it.
You've got other interests as well. Do you run a rum business now? Is that right?
I've been running this business since a year and a half, and we are now in UK. We're going to be on TV tomorrow, but it's not BBC, so I can't tell.
Probably shouldn't. No, probably shouldn't. But you have other business interests, though.
Yeah. So that's.
How did that come about, then?
Well, that's my background. My dad is from Guadeloupe, French West Indies, and that's the only drink I've been enjoying during the off-season.
The off-season. In case Alex is still listening, you're still in training, remember. This is not an off-season anymore.
Yeah, I know. So, no, it's something that I started by passion, and it's a good business now, so I'm focusing on that.
Is it a conscious thing to get away from football as your next venture in life, then, or do you still want to be involved in the game in some way?
I want to be involved, but you have to find the right place. I haven't started passing my badges. I think I will. I'm not sure if I want to be a coach. But football gave me a lot, and I'd like to give back. It's as simple as that.
We're talking about when to retire. We talked about Sachin Tendulkar earlier on Sports World. My guests were the former Indian wicketkeeper Farooq Engineer and Tendulkar's biographer Gula Ezekiel and the Indian cricket great Rahul Dravid.
For a whole generation of people, it'll be unimaginable because that's all they would have seen. I mean, he's been playing for such a long time. But that's going to happen. It's inevitable. I mean, it's inevitable as, people do move on, and that's life. And cricket will go on. The game is bigger than any individual there is. And Sachin is as big an individual as you can find in this game. But the game will move on. I mean, the greats have played before him and will continue to play after him. And there will come a time, and Indian cricket will have to deal with it. And we will. I mean, that's Gavaskar's moved on. Tendulkar will one day.
If he had got a century in the World Cup final, India had won, and Sachin had retired, it would have been absolutely perfect. It didn't work out that way. It took him another 12 months to get his last century. Now people are talking about that the next landmark is his 200th Test match. I mean, this is never going to end.
No individual is greater than the game, but Sachin is very, very close to that. Certainly the television rights and all that, I don't think will be affected a great deal because Cricket India is the one that they really want to have. And one good spell will bring India back on the map. Sachin will be missed, but the game has to go on.
That's what they had to say. You can listen again to our Tendulkar discussion on our Audio Boo channel. Go to @BBC Sports. Well, that's the place to go, actually, after the programme to hear from the Premier League managers and players and for our discussion as well. So go to our Audio Boo channel @BBC Sports World. Tendulkar was out for just 5 on the 4th day of the 3rd Test against England in Kolkata. India lead by 32 at the close with just 1 second innings wicket remaining. Bangladesh have beaten West Indies by 2 wickets in the 5th one-day international in Dhaka. Bangladesh bowled the tourists out for 217. They then chased down their target for the loss of 8 wickets. With 6 overs to spare, it means that Bangladesh take that series 3-2. Mikhail Sylvester is still with me. We've got some questions coming in. There were some questions for you on our Facebook page, Sports World BBC World Service. Prepare yourself for that.
Yes, I'm ready.
Hopefully they're not too taxing. We'll ask you a few questions from our listeners, and we're going to go to Las Vegas as well, because... Are you a boxing fan?
Yeah, I am.
Manny Pacquiao is in action against Juan Manuel Marquez. They know each other very well. They've shared the ring for 36 rounds during their careers. Two of the biggest rivals in boxing. That rivalry will be renewed later in Las Vegas. The pair have met 3 times already. Pacquiao's won 2 bouts. One of them was a draw. When they last met in November last year, Pacquiao narrowly retained his WBO welterweight title with a controversial majority decision over Marquez. So do both fighters feel they have a point to prove? Well, they weighed in at the Grand Garden Arena. Pacquiao in at 147, 4 pounds heavier than Marquez. And Sports World's Adi Adadoin was there and joins me now live on Sports World from Las Vegas. Adi, how much is Pacquiao taking a huge risk with fighting Marquez again then? Because he's had other options, didn't he, in his career, but he's chosen to go back to Marquez for a 4th time.
He did, Lee, and Pacquiao, remember, controversially lost his world title to American Timothy Bradley on a split decision here in Vegas earlier this year. Now, most ringside observers, most boxing writers, most boxers that I've spoken to feel it was a poor decision by the officials and that Pacquiao was the clear winner. And there was so much debate about that fight that the WBO, the World Boxing Organization who sanctioned it, commissioned 5 veteran judges to review it, and they all ruled that Pacquiao should have been awarded the winner. So he could have had a rematch with Bradley if he wanted, but he's opted for this big money showdown against his old nemesis Juan Manuel Marquez. Instead, he's guaranteed a minimum $23 million for this bout, much more than he would have earned had he face Bradley again, who is a good fighter, but not really well known, except amongst hardcore boxing fans. And Pacquiao against Marquez is also more attractive to the public and trickier too. The head-to-head record, as you say, 2 victories for Pacquiao, the other declared a draw, but you could make an argument for either fighter winning all 3. Now, Marquez has never really accepted those defeats, so does Pacquiao feel he has a point to prove?
Well, he need to prove something because he never accept that he lost the fight. So I'm defending what I have done, but instead I prepared more because I'm expecting him to prove something because he's claiming that he won the fight.
You faced him a few times, so you know his style. What is it that you've learned that you need to do differently on Saturday? What do you need to do differently to make it decisive?
More aggressiveness and also I develop my my strength, my power, and praying to God.
Do you need to stop him? You need to knock him out?
If I could have a chance, why not? And I will grab that opportunity.
And you need to go back to the old Manny Pacquiao?
Yes.
Interesting. Well, if we will see that old Manny Pacquiao, then Addy, interesting also that he said that Marquez never accepted that he'd lost that last fight. I mean, for the Mexican, he can't afford any slip-ups, can he? This surely is going to be his last shot at Pacquiao.
Yeah, he's 39 years old, which is getting on for a welterweight. He's had a long, very successful career as well. Remember, he's won titles in 4 different weight divisions, and is considered one of the best fighters to come out of Mexico, a country which has produced legends like Julio Cesar Chavez and Marco Antonio Barrera, who were both at Friday's weigh-in. Pacquiao may go down in history as the better fighter simply because he's won titles in 8 different weight classes, which is unprecedented. But clearly Marquez has a style that's posed him a lot of problems. He's the one puzzle that Pacquiao hasn't been able to solve. He was so frustrated after Pacquiao was awarded a decision in their last bout, which you mentioned earlier, 13 months ago, that he stormed out to the ring without conducting an interview and then contemplated hanging up his gloves. He changed his mind in the hope of facing Pacquiao again. He's got his wish, and he says this time he can't afford to let it go to the judges' scorecard. He feels he's got to knock Pacquiao out to win.
I working for that, but it's Manny Pacquiao is a strong fighter. What I looking for? I doing my job in the ring.
You know him very well. You faced him 3 times, 36 rounds. What have you learned that you can take advantage? What can you do differently on Saturday to make sure you win it?
I need to work in my speed. I need to work in my strength. I've been very focused in the ring. I need 5 cents on the ring, and I need to do a perfect fight.
Finally, tell me what it would mean to you to get this victory after all these years.
The victory is the important for me. I looking for the victory. They're the most important for me.
That's what Marquez is chasing, of course. Addy, how did they look then? How do you see this one going after you've seen them both now at the weigh-in?
Both look very confidently, both look ready to rumble, and next time they see each other, it's going to be for real. The weigh-in was open to the public. There were close to 8,000 odd fight fans in there yesterday to watch the 2 men get on the scales and then pose for the customary head-to-head photo shot. Vegas has a big Hispanic community, and the Marquez supporters outnumbered the Pacquiao fans, out-chanted them as well. There were more Mexican flags being waved, lots of people wearing sombreros, which suggests to me it could be a very pro-Marquez crowd later in the arena tonight, which is pretty much like it was 13 months ago when they faced each other. Mike Tyson was there, as were legends Chavez and Barrera, as I said, and they helped to whip the crowd into a bit of a frenzy. And I think the sheer volume of supports there for him got Marquez even more fired up because he had that look in his eyes, Lee. On more than one occasion, when he was on the temporary stage, he would turn towards the crowd and pump his fist up in the air. Boxing legend Roy Jones was also there, casting an eye over proceedings. He told me that he thinks Marquez will make it a tough night for Pacquiao.
Marquez is dead serious. Marquez has blood in one eye and spit in the other. He ain't playing. That's for sure.
Has that swayed you in terms of the way you think this fight might go?
Yes, it does, because what it tells me is that Freddie Roach better be on his game in the corner with Pacquiao, or Pacquiao might lose.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Just because of the look in Marquez's eyes?
Well, no, it's just that I think with his strategy and the way he fights Pacquiao, it's going to take Freddie helping Pacquiao make some adjustments to deal with Marquez, or else to me, Marquez has the advantage.
Tell me what your gut instinct is as to how this is going to play out.
My gut instinct is that Marquez is going to come out or start boxing a little quicker, try to hit Pacquiao early. Probably going to try to impose his power on Pacquiao to show Pacquiao they can hurt him early. If he does that, Pacquiao going to immediately start fighting back. When that happens, Pacquiao is definitely a stronger puncher in the past, but with Marquez and this new muscle, we'll have to see how Pacquiao takes his new punches too, because he's going to be a little bit more powerful with the looping punches, the hooks, the uppercuts, the overhand rights than he has in the past too. So that's what's going to tell the story. Who takes whose punch the best?
Addy, you can only say one fighter. I suppose you could say a draw as well, but if you had to say one fighter, where's this going then in Vegas later?
Do you know what? I've learned to expect the unexpected with these two. Last year, I thought Pacquiao was going to knock him out, but then it turned out to be a hard fight. My gut instinct is Pacquiao's going to edge it. It's going to be controversial. It's going to be split decision.
We'll sure see. Addy, thank you. Live in Las Vegas, Mikael Silvestre is with me. Are footballers into other sports as well? Is boxing or, other sports that you would follow? We've established it's not cricket for you, but...
No, Frenchmen don't follow cricket, I'm sorry.
I don't blame you. But in the United dressing room, were other sports talked about?
Boxing is very followed in the dressing room, all the players, and athletics also. So we follow other sports. Tennis is one of the big one.
We've still got those questions for you. Hang on for those, because we're going to go to Los Angeles now, because we've been talking about legends of the sport. Sachin Tendulkar in cricket. Well, what a icon of basketball Kobe Bryant has been. He's written his name into the record books this week, became the youngest player in NBA history to eclipse 30,000 career points. Let's speak to Flynn Boyd in Los Angeles now. He's played basketball for Great Britain, he played in France, he's played in Spain, he's in Los Angeles at the moment, and a real milestone achievement for Kobe Bryant, Flinder, I guess, achieved through that combination of his scoring ability, his longevity, and his good health as well in the game to join the likes of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Karl Malone, Michael Jordan, Wilt Chamberlain, over 30,000 points. Incredible.
Yeah, it's a remarkable achievement for anybody, but for Kobe Bryant to achieve that, as you said, the youngest player, and this isn't a guy in the twilight of his career, as many would have thought. He's played nearly 1,200 games, and he's still going strong. I was at the game last week, and he looked as quick and as nimble and as athletic as I've seen in maybe 5 or 6 years. Right now, he's leading the league in scoring. He's maybe having his most efficient year if you look at true shooting percentage, which takes into account three-point shooting percentage, free throws. And I think a lot of that can be attributed to his work ethic. There was a recent article in the New York Times where they mentioned he's kind of retrofitted a van so that he can ice his knees and his ankles at least 3 times a day as he drives to practice. And unfortunately for him, that hasn't translated into wins this year with the Lakers. They're 9-11 and really struggling. And their team is actually only 1-8 when he scores more than 30 points. So even though he's having a great year scoring the ball, he'd probably be better off maybe more as a facilitator this year.
Mikael, do you fancy driving along with ice packs strapped to you just to keep in top condition, if that's what it takes?
My drive is too short to the dressing room.
That's probably best. I mean, Flinder, interesting point you make there about how it hasn't always translated into the results for the Lakers, but over his career, David Stern, the NBA commissioner, said as a competitor, he's up there on the pedestal with Michael Jordan. He's still got a couple of years, I think, on his contract, but already he's going to leave some legacy, isn't he, on the game?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he'll go down as one of the top 5 players of all time. And you can debate endlessly whether he's as good as Michael Jordan, whether his 5 championships are as good as Jordan's 6, or whether some of his Laker teams were as good as Jordan's Bulls teams. But there's no question that he's kind of changed the game for the better, and his competitive streak is legendary. So Kobe Bryant to reach 30,000. He'll possibly end up as the 3rd or even 2nd highest scorer of all time when it's all said and done.
Yeah, got some way to go to catch Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with over 38,000, but still some time left in his career. But we have the likes of LeBron James at Miami and Kevin Durant, don't we? Youngsters who already look like, if they stay fit, could be on course to even overtake Kobe.
Well, you said it. That's the main question. Can they stay fit? LeBron James has proven it over his career. He rarely gets hurt. He's always on the floor. And he kind of has that same competitive streak that Kobe Bryant has, where he can really he can score tons of points if he wants. But, it's almost LeBron James is so unselfish that he'd rather his teammates score the basket. He'd rather get a ton of assists, that he might not get some of the points that Kobe Bryant can get. And we saw Kevin Durant last night against the Lakers, had a fantastic game, 36 points. He's capable of scoring 30,000 points. He's the best pure scorer in the NBA right now.
Well, Kevin Durant for Oklahoma had that victory over the Lakers last night. The Western Conference leaders Memphis are at home to Atlanta later on Saturday. The New York Knicks, the leaders in the East, go to the Chicago Bulls. Flynn the Boy, thanks for joining us on Sports World. We're going to hear from Fernando Torres now, scorer of 2 goals for Chelsea in that 3-1 win over Sunderland.
Yeah, it was a long time not scoring in the Premier League. But 2 goals 3 days ago in the Champions League and 2 more today, so very happy for go back to score, and especially because the team start winning.
Is the team playing differently? Is that why you're scoring all of a sudden?
I think you can see very clear that we don't pass the ball as much as we did before in the final third, and we try to play more direct and explode the pace. So we're attacking more, we're creating more chances, and we're working as a team. Normally it takes some time when a new manager arrives and change small things like this, but I think the results the last Wednesday and today is going to give us more confidence. That is the only thing we need now.
That's Fernando Torres talking about the confidence Chelsea need. They go to the Club World Cup in Japan. I mentioned it's Ulsan Hyundai or Monterrey of Mexico next in the semi-finals of the Club World Cup. They take a break from the Premier League. Before we go, Mikel, we've got these questions then on Facebook, Sports World, BBC World Service. Don't worry, they're all right. It's okay. Odeleja is in Nigeria. Thank you very much for getting in touch. Who's the striker you feared most in the Premier League?
I feared Alan Shearer and Les Ferdinand. At that time, I was quite young and going and face those guys who were already in the monsters of the Premier League, strong in the air, and it was a real challenge for me.
A lot of people want to know about this move from Manchester United to Arsenal. What was it like, says Kondowalani in Zambia, going from United to Arsenal, considering the rivalry there is there?
I think we write and we say more than it is really, because I wasn't like a main striker at United and going to Arsenal. I was just a soldier going from one club to another, and for me it was easy to adapt because there were so many Frenchies in the dressing room at Arsenal.
quite a
talking to the manager, yeah.
Quite a contingent there. We've got less than a minute, so we probably haven't got time for Abdul's question in Sierra Leone. Why, for over half a decade, have Arsenal not won a major trophy? We haven't got enough time for that, have we, surely?
No, like we said before, it's difficult to win trophies when you get rid of your best players every season. It's as simple as that.
Here's the final one then. Chao is in South Sudan. Thank you very much for getting in touch. You're a Manchester United supporter, being a former player of United and of Arsenal. Here's the question they all want to know. Which club do you love the most?
9 years at United is obvious. I'm a Red.
Mikel, thank you very much indeed. It's been a pleasure having you in on the Sports World studio, reacting to the Premier League, looking ahead to the Manchester derby. You can react to that as well and have your say with Caroline, 18 hours GMT on Sunday, and there's live commentary of West Ham against Liverpool. Thanks to Mikel, thanks to all my guests today. We're back next weekend and we're in Germany. We're in the Bundesliga, Bayer Leverkusen against Hamburg. You can enjoy that with me from 15 hours GMT.
BBC. As the World Service marks its 80th anniversary, our series of interviews with renowned octogenarian women continues.
You met Mahatma Gandhi, the independent...
I did, yes, as a schoolgirl.
The Indian historian Professor Romila Thapar in conversation with Lise Doucette.
I didn't think of myself as a second son. I thought of myself as simply an independent woman.
The Age of Reason, on air and online today on the BBC World Service.
BBC World Service. We report. Geraint Anderson, who worked as an investment banker, walked away from the London trading floor and the glitzy lifestyle. We discuss.
It got too much for me. It became something that I couldn't live with any further. And you know, I did sell my soul to the devil.
BBC World Service, the world's radio station.
Ny klimaavtale, møte i Qatar kom til enighet, men utslippsmålene alt for svake, mener miljøbevegelsen. Mange i AP opplever seksuell trakassering, sier leder av kvinnenettverk. Anniken Huitfeldt tar det alvorlig. Stor norsk skiskytterdag. Synnøve Solemdal vant sin første verdenscupseier. Tora Berger nummer 2. Velkommen til Lørdagsrevyen. I magasinet skal vi se at det hektiske Nobelforberedelser i Oslo om dagen.
Vi med i kulissene i UD. Aldri før så mange statsoverhoder ventet til Norge samtidig, og det krever nøye planlegging, for helst bør alt klaffe mandag.
Hvis man har en god plan, så kan man også gå vekk fra den. Så jeg tror vi har tenkt på alt.
Men først, en ny internasjonal klimaavtale nå på plass. 200 land har blitt enige om å forlenge Kyoto-avtalen. Men klimatoppmøtet ble ikke enige om strengere utslippsmål, og det skuffer klimaforkjemperne.
Nesten et døgn på overtid kom avtalen på plass. Kyoto-avtalen blir utvidet, og Kyoto 2 det nye navnet. Gjennom 12 dager har delegatene vært i harde forhandlinger om teksten i avtalen. Flere pauser og høneblunder måtte til. Dagens plenummøte ble utsatt fordi mange av punktene i teksten fremdeles ble motarbeidet av enkelte land. Flere av landene som har merket den globale oppvarmingen mest, de som har argumentert sterkest for en ny avtale.
The outcome of our work is not about what our political masters want. It is about what is demanded of us by 7 billion people.
Den nye avtalen skal gjelde 8 år fram i tid, men ingen skjerpa tiltak mot global oppvarming ligger i avtalen førebels. Delegatene i Doha har unngått en krise, men ikke mer.
Det har vært en lang og til dels forvirrende dag her, og til dels har det vært stor frustrasjon rundt om i konferansesalene, for det tok seg tid for denne avtalen kom i boks. Det skjedde altså ut på ettermiddagen, og Bård Vegar Solhjell, hva var det som førte til gjennombrott?
Altså, nå jeg jo glad for at Kyoto 2 var vedtatt, men det var en forvirrende dag. Fordi mange timer blokkerte et land, Russland, en ny avtale. Og jeg og en brasiliansk kollega brukte mye tid på dialog med dem, finne løsninger, hvordan vi kunne gå videre. Til slutt så ble den stemt gjennom, akkurat som den var foreslått fra oss, og med til akklamasjon, og det er jeg veldig glad for, tross alt.
Det nå en fullstendig avtale som omfatter ikke bare en ny Kyoto-avtale, men også de andre viktige elementene?
Ja, vi har en Kyoto 2-avtale som forpliktende, skal kutte utslipp i Norge og andre land. Så har vi andre deler som penger til klimafinansiering, nye planer. Men vi må være ærlige og si at i en tid der det storm på Filippinene og i USA, der issmeltingen øker, så det et paradoks at vi ikke har den store avtalen verden trenger som kutter utslipp i Kina og USA.
Men når den Kyoto-avtalen som nå blitt forlenget går ut, vil det da komme en ny internasjonal avtale på plass? Løpet lagt for det nå?
Ja, det det, men det blir tøft. Og Norge kommer nå til å sette alle krefter på 2 ting. Mest mulig handling raskest mulig i Norge, men også internasjonalt, for eksempel gjennom regnskogsatsingen. Og så en ny global avtale som virkelig kan kutte utslipp, der alle store utslippsland som USA, Kina, India, Brasil og Sør-Afrika og andre store land må være med på å ta ansvar.
Lars Haltbrekken, du glad for avtale, men sier også at dette ikke nok. Hvorfor det ikke det?
Nei, de utslippskuttene som nå ligger på bordet ikke nok til å forhindre dramatiske klimaendringer. Det bra vi har fått en videreføring av Kyoto-protokollen, men sannheten at sjansen for å unngå svært alvorlige klimaendringer i ferd med å glippe ut av hendene på oss.
Men kommer man til å klare å få med for eksempel USA og Kina da, som de virkelig store i en forpliktende internasjonal avtale?
Ja, det vi trenger å se de neste årene en massiv mobilisering, nettopp for å pålegge også de landene å forplikte seg til store utslippskutt. Det fortsatt mulig å unngå de verste konsekvensene.
Men å få med dem en hard nøtt?
Det en hard nøtt, og det trengs en sterk mobilisering både fra Norge og fra andre land og fra mennesker rundt omkring på hele kloden for å få på plass en avtale i 2015 som nå målet. Og neste år så kommer det også en ny rapport fra verdens fremste klimaeksperter, og vi håper den vil fungere som en alarmklokke overfor verdens statsledere, sånn at vi virkelig kan få den handlingen som dette store problemet trenger, for hvis ikke så det alvorlige konsekvenser både for mennesker og natur vi står foran.
Veldig kort til slutt, var det noe poeng å være i Doha?
Ja, det var det. Vi har gjort mye for å påvirke. Vi har ikke kommet dit vi hadde ønsket, men vi trenger nå i årene fremover en massiv mobilisering for å få til store kutt.
Takk for at du var med i Dagsrevyen. Det mange jenter i Arbeiderpartiet som har blitt utsatt for seksuell trakassering. Det sier lederen av partiets kvinnenettverk i Oslo til Dagsavisen. Anniken Huitfeldt mener at Arbeiderpartiet ikke verre enn andre partier.
Arbeiderpartiet ingen søndagsskole, sa Håkon Lie. Men hvor mye sextrakassering det i partiet? I Dagsavisen hevder leder i Oslo AP sitt kvinnenettverk, Torunn Kanutte Husvik, at flertallet av alle AP-kvinnene hun kjenner har vært utsatte for slik trakassering.
Hun sier jo at det det samme i Arbeiderpartiet som i resten av samfunnet. Så hun sier at vi hele tiden må jobbe med holdningsendringer på dette feltet. Og seksuell trakassering definerer hun også som negative kommentarer på kropp og utseende eller familieliv. Det viktig å jobbe for gode miljøer. Folk skal føle seg velkommen i Arbeiderpartiet.
Husvik vil ikke stille til intervju med Dagsrevyen i dag. Til avisa sier hun at AP har en ukultur som har fått passere for lett.
I Tromsø har 2 kvinner stått frem. Mange i byen har kjent til historiene lenge.
Huitfeldt måtte i ukesluttstudio i dag svare for hvordan hun arbeider for å hindre trakassering og misbruk av tillit for å skaffe seg sex. Hun har en beskjed.
Du ledig, så har du ansvar for å sette grenser for deg selv.
Men du sier også at ting kan bli bedre. Hva kan bli bedre?
Det som fylkeslagslederne i AUF gir oss beskjed om å sette disse retningslinjene oftere på dagsorden. At vi oftere tar det opp i partisammenheng. Noen har gjort det systematisk, og det kan vi lære mer av.
Arbeiderpartiet blir kanskje aldri en søndagsskole, men før var det visst enda verre.
Jeg sa frem noe som jeg opplevde som at jeg hadde fått råd om at vi skulle komme opp og frem med Arbeiderpartiet, så må du danse med de rette mannfolka. Nå har jeg blitt statsråd, det ikke danse med andre enn mannen min. Så det beviser at det rådet var ganske dårlig.
Etter statssekretær Roger Ingebrigtsens dramatiske avgang for 1 uke siden har mange historier om sextrakassering i politiske miljøer kommet fram. Seminarer med unge partimedlemmer angivelig blitt rene sjekkearenaer.
Vi vet at mange unge jenter, opp til 30% det undersøkelser fra Trondheim og Oslo som viser opplever seksuell trakassering. At det såpass utbredt som det kan tyde på at det nå i politiske partier sjokkerende, og det på tide at ledelsen her tar fatt i disse problemene.
Likestillingsombudet understreker at seksuell trakassering ulovlig, og at alle arbeidsgivere og ledere har plikt til å forebygge dette. Kan du definere hva det som ulovlig sextrakassering?
Det uønskede handlinger som rammer den som opplever det som krenkende, og det kan være ord og ikke-verbale handlinger, og selvfølgelig også berøring og den type handlinger.
I Egypts hovedstad Kairo fortsetter protestene mot president Mohammed Morsi. I dag har myndighetene satt opp store sperringer rundt presidentpalasset for å holde demonstrantene unna. Presidentens parti, det muslimske brorskap, har i dag fastholdt at det kritiserte grunnlovsforslaget må opp til en folkeavstemning. Silvio Berlusconi vil bli statsminister igjen. Det bekreftet han til en av sine TV-kanaler i dag. Han har vært Italias statsminister 3 ganger og har vært svært omstridt. I dag sa han at han føler seg forpliktet til å returnere til politikken.
Opinione di tutti che ci volesse un leader riconosciuto e questo leader, ahimè, un Berlusconi del 94 non l'abbiamo trovato, non è che non sia cercato, l'abbiamo cercato, e come? Ma è che no, e quindi
può vincere anche questo mito.
Mange har vært kritiske til at EU får fredsprisen i år, men hun som kalles kvinnen bak fredsprisen også omtalt som grunnleggeren av EU. Les denne historien på nrk.no. I morgen det åpningsgudstjeneste i et av Norges mest spesielle kirkebygg. Gulvet i kirken bygget som en eneste stor høyttaler, og kirkeorgelet byttet ut med et lysorgel. Alt tilpasset brukerne.
Musikk betyr mye for Idun Lyngard Ove. Selv om hun har svekket hørsel. Hun også blind, født med kromosomavvik og uten taleevne. Ser han lyset? Litt grann. Geir Pedersen kan skimte fargen i lyset om det nærme nok. Som døvblind uten taleevne dette en av hans få forbindelseslinjer til utenomverdenen. Kommunikasjonen, språket, skjer ved kroppskontakt.
Og så må vi forsøke å tilpasse oss deres virkelighetsopplevelse. På den måten her.
I morgen må det være klart til åpningsgudstjeneste i en særegen kirke på Signo døvblindesenter i Andebu.
Om det skjer noe med lyden.
Et norsk kirkebygg møter Star Wars. Hele gulvet en eneste stor forvokst basskasse. Kirkeorgelet byttet ut med et lysorgel.
Wow, det spennende.
Nå skal hun for første gang få oppleve hva de kaller verdens eneste sansekirke.
Musikken.
Du kan se den har det godt.
Absolutt. Og nyter det, kjenne vibrasjonen I gulvet og høre den fine tonen som bak.
Hun på cellegiftkur. Hvordan det mulig å glede de syke små? Northug og Bjørgen ville ikke vært de samme uten ham. Smøresjefen ukens lørdagsgjest. Og han har hjulpet barn med foreldre som ruser seg. Nå ønsker han å takke dem som hjalp ham. Aldri før har så mange stats- og regjeringssjefer meldt sin ankomst til Oslo samtidig. Hele 21 av 27 EU-land sender sin øverste leder med følge til fredsprisutdelingen. Utenriksdepartementet skal sørge for at hundrevis av prominente gjester kommer dit de skal, når de skal.
Someone knows how to do this. I still can't. What happens on Monday is that the motorcades come into the courtyard. The VIP cars stop right in front where Joe and Sven are standing, and the mayor will be greeting them all the way down there, right?
Et døgn tidligere. Alle EUs ambassadører får beskjed om hva de må gjøre for at UDs største logistikkoperasjon noensinne skal gå smertefritt.
20 heads of state or government visiting. Ikke skal på briefing for EU-ambassadene I Oslo. Everybody seems to belong to the group, so then let's go.
For UD alle detaljer uhyre viktige nå. Diplomatene opptatt av bordplassering under statsministerens lunsj I Gamlelosjen.
But you would like to
put our prime minister between Angela Merkel and Austria.
And Austria? But I'll take note of your wish, yeah? But I will not promise, okay?
I understand.
Our next appointment in terms of walkthrough is at 10:15 in the Oslo City Hall.
Like I nærheten på statsministerens kontor. Han skal få tips om hva han kan si til hver enkelt EU-topp på mandagens lunsj.
Du første mann ut døra da, sånn at du kan være på plass I Gamlelosjen for å ta imot de stats- og regjeringssjefene når de kommer.
Med dine ord, ditt budskap. Det at selv om faren for akutt sammenbrudd I europeisk økonomi redusert, så ser vi at krisen endrer form fra å være en krise I finansmarkedet til å bli en krise I arbeidsmarkedet. Så skal vi rekke å spise også. Men disse menneskene veldig flinke til å snakke og spise samtidig. Ja.
Hva det som kan gå galt da?
Nei, det alle disse transportetappene som vi selvfølgelig avhengig av for eksempel været. Hvis det blir vanskelige landingsforhold på Gardermoen, vanskelige forhold når de skal ta av fra sine hovedsteder, så det klart at ting kan bli forsinket, men det får vi bare ta når det kommer.
Årets fredsprisarrangement gigantisk, men hva det koster og hvor mange som involverte får vi ikke vite. Sikkerheten brukes som begrunnelse. Den viktigst når over 20 statsledere kommer hit samtidig.
We will take the VIP plus the 3 member delegation to a holding area to wait for the procession into the room.
Prime Minister, Ambassador, class free.
Yes. We'll just have a look in the hall. And the leaders will be seated on the 2 first rows on this side in EU protocol orders. Remember, if you're seated on the right-hand side, go that way. Yeah. Don't go out into the aisle. Yeah. Any other questions while we're here?
No, everything.
See you Monday then. Hva har vi glemt nå?
Ingenting, håper jeg.
Nei, jeg stoler på deg.
Det fint.
De under kontroll. Som sagt, dette har vi jo planlagt I så lang tid som vi har hatt å planlegge på. Og så det selvfølgelig en stor utfordring når det så mange delegasjoner, at det kan bli endringer, ting skjer. Men det litt det der, hvis man har en god plan, så kan man også gå vekk fra den. Så jeg tror vi har tenkt på alt. Så har Jo her et motto for det arbeidet vi gjør.
Fungerer det bestandig?
Ja, det gjør I grunnen det, altså. Det puste dypt og bare kjøre på.
Vi sender pressekonferansen om Nobels fredspris I morgen fra klokka 12:55 her I NRK1. For noen barn sykdom og lange opphold på sykehus en del av barndommen. Det å tilbringe dager og uker borte fra den normale hverdagen kan være både tøft og kjedelig. Men også på sykehus finnes det noen som kan få barna til å tenke på noe annet.
Vi alltid sommerfugler I magen. Sånn. Man vet aldri hva som skjer, men det eneste vi vet at vi ønsker det gode, vi ønsker å se det friske.
Jeg skal ta blodprøve med en metode som mamma har funnet på.
Hvorfor har du en spesiell metode da?
Fordi da det mye enklere å ta blodprøver.
På LR.
Bare 10 år, men bedre kjent på sykehus enn de fleste.
I dag.
På kreftavdelingen på St. Olavs hospital I Trondheim forbereder skuespillerne seg på hvilke barn de I dag skal møte.
Vi får navn og alder og hva de Jeg får litt rundt det psykososiale. Og så snakker vi litt sammen rundt hvordan dagen I dag om det noen som kanskje spesielt trenger et behov for besøk.
Nå skal vi få satt på slangen med cellegift.
Sunniva på 1,5 år går gjennom en tøff cellegiftbehandling. Det siste året har hun og familien tilbrakt utallige timer på sykehuset.
På en måte så det jo tungt, men så har det blitt en hverdag også. Det det som jobben vår nå. Så ja. Det en rutine I det å dra på sykehuset nesten hver dag. følge opp hun.
For snart 1 år siden fant legen en svulst i magen til Sunniva, med spredning til benmargen.
Så flink du er. Det var et stort sjokk. Det var helt uventet. Vi skulle jo bare til legen med litt feber, og så ble vi innlagt med kreft.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, pling!
Skuespillerne har blitt til sykehusklovner. Men det er først i møte med barna det magiske oppstår.
Jeg har alltid jobbet interaktivt og med et dialogbasert teater. At vi skaper sammen i øyeblikket. Så det er jo et ekstremt konsentrasjonsarbeid. Vi ønsker at humor og drømmer og fantasi skal være en del av sykehushverdagen. Vi kan ikke gjøre noe med situasjonen de er i, men vi kan gjøre noe med opplevelsen av situasjonen.
På rom 37 sitter Ellen og venter på prøvesvar. Ved hjelp av operasjon og en omfattende behandling har hun blitt kvitt kreften i hjernen. Men det er viktig at ikke blodverdiene blir for lave.
Vi er flinke på å vente, Ellen. Vi er blitt utrolig tålmodige, synes jeg.
Når man er på sykehuset, så føles det ut som å miste store deler av barndommen sin, fordi at da må vi sitte her, så må vi bare se på TV, og hvis vi er på isolat, kan ikke venner komme på besøk, eller vi kan ikke gå ut.
Hvordan har det vært da?
Kjedelig.
Men også på sykehus finnes det morsomme overraskelser.
Kommer klovnen i dag?
Jeg vet ikke. Jeg vet ikke kanskje i dag.
Er du spent på det, eller?
Ja.
Man kjenner hvis det man har hatt en god dag som scenekunstner eller ikke, at man klarer å koble seg på og skape veien videre med barnet. Men det spørs jo hvilken form det er. Det kan jo være at de sier nei, og da får de jo lov til å si det til klovnen, for de kan jo ikke det til all behandling de må igjennom.
Vi føler jo på at det smilet, det betyr jo så utrolig mye. At de klarer å få frem smilet til ungene.
Hva vil du hete da? Ellen, og så bytter vi om en annen deres.
Det har vært tunge dager, det har vært tøft, Ellen. Og da har jo når de klovnene kommer inn, så har de jo kunnet snudd opp ned på en sånn tung dag.
Ellen, bare kudda.
De første sykehusklovnene startet i Oslo, og der har ordningen eksistert i 10 år. Bak våre langrennsstjerner står en sjef og sjefens team, og deres innsats kan avgjøre hele rennet. Vår lørdagsgjest kan alt om smøring, og om hvordan det kjennes ut når man tabber seg ut.
Dette skal ikke handle så mye om Petter Northug som det skal handle om skiene hans. Men det skal heller ikke handle så mye om skiene som det skal handle om mannen med ansvaret for dem.
Det er klart det er ikke lett. Forventningen er at vi skal bli nummer 1. Det betyr at vi kan kun enten levere eller skuffe. Andreplass er det sånn, ja ok, bedre lykke neste gang. Tredjeplass, du burde kanskje begynne å vurdere å finne noe annet å gjøre. Og fjerde så er det litt sånn, ha det. Og det er klart, det er tøft, men vi har jo valgt det selv. Playback only, hva hender her nå?
Foran TV-en i stua er han ikke ofte, men smøresjefen til landslaget skal snart kåre sin beste og verste arbeidsdag for oss. Selvsagt må vi gjenleve de øyeblikkene med ham, men først la oss bli litt kjent.
Lillebror.
Hvorfor ikke starte hjemme på soverommet?
Skal du stå opp, lillebror?
Med 110 reisedager i året tiden han får med de 2 barna ekstra verdifull.
Se der. Sov litt her, du. Man går jo glipp av en del ting. Nå lærte han jo ordentlig å gå når jeg var borte, så det fikk jeg jo ikke se. Og når han i dag i tillegg kan de her 2 ordene ha det, så skjønner man jo at det jo for at jeg borte mye.
En på 1.
Synes du har en fin lillebror?
Ja.
Og ei på 6. På spørsmål om hva han driver med når han ikke jobber, svaret familie. Ingenting annet. Og hør på dette. Smøresjefen på landslaget går på smørefri ski for å tilbringe mest mulig tid med familien.
For min del så det viktig å bruke tid sammen med mine barn. Jeg orker ikke å smøre det. Men jeg synes det artig å smøre.
Han må jobbe litt også.
Det på tide å gjøre dagens jobb.
Selv om han har pause fra sirkuset som for tiden på treningsleir i Italia. En del av jobben å oppdatere bloggen om hva som foregår i smøretroppen.
Skal vi se, da har vi sikkert fått flere bilder fra min bror, vet du.
Broren. En annen ting man bør vite om 42-åringen. Tvillingbroren hans trener for herrelandslaget i langrenn, og de 2 helt like. Bare se på dette arkivmaterialet.
Jeg heter Trond Nystad og da sjef for herrelandslaget. Tull. Det som Trond, og det som sjef.
Man kan likevel se forskjell. Knut har nemlig 2 ringer i venstre øre.
På 90-tallet, ikke sant, da skulle man ha høl i øret. Og jeg kom hjem, og da hadde jeg en liten ørering, og da sa bestemor min, det der ikke noe ørering. Så da fikk jeg faktisk den største her, det tippoldefaren min sin ring. Du hørte rett, det var tippoldefar. Da skal vi legge ut et par bilder til her. Der, 2 forskjellige bilder. Ja, her det mye fint, skjønner du.
Så DVD-en i. Svigermor barnevakt mens mor på jobb. Alt klart for Knut Nystads lille kåring. Beste og verste øyeblikk i karrieren. Men først bare en liten svipptur på jobb.
1 stykk med smorning. Et smørebord. Da vi på vei.
Mens Nystad skal lære skiglade hos en sponsor å smøre ski, ruller debatten om skilandslagsapparatet for stort.
Sammenlignet med at vi skal få mindre ressurser, det jo nesten som at Australia og USA skal ta vann ut av svømmebassengene sine. Vi driver jo på med noe sunt, og vi investerer jo i den norske folkesjela, så det forhåpentligvis det vi kan lære bort litt.
Og det det han gjør i kveld. Lærer bort med glimt i øyet.
Ut på tur, aldri sur. Skulle vært på slankekur eller noe. Det litt sånn James Bond over det her, Da vi klar. Og da det nok å pusse frem og tilbake et par ganger. 2 lange lag og 2 korte lag. Du får ikke noe medalje for å være raskest ferdig med smøringa. Dette ikke fruen du stryker, det skien. 1 dag til med smøring, ferdig.
Så vi klare for kåringen. Beste og verste øyeblikk i karrieren. Vi starter med det beste først.
På førsteplass så har vi et renn fra 8P. Det en sprintkonkurranse i januar i 2010.
5 nordmenn mot hverandre og 1 svenske i finalen.
Det ser ut som NM.
Det blir Olav Iggen Hattestad som igjen sterkest på et oppløp. Han vinner igjen for 4. gang denne sesongen. Det helt utrolig!
En god dag i smørebua står i grell kontrast til den verste dagen.
Skal vi bare rulle, eller?
Kom igjen, Petter! Det akkurat halvminuttet bak Helnes som leder! Kom igjen nå!
På det første plass av skuffelse var vel egentlig når Petter gikk inn til noen av 40. plass i OL i Vancouver. Det ble utrolig mye fokus på skien til Petter og hvem som hadde gjort feil. Jeg har jo akseptert min jobb. Min jobb jo å ta ansvaret, så det jo ikke noe farlig å ta ansvar. Vi driver jo ikke på med noe farlig. Vi driver på med underholdning. Folk skal bli glad for det vi driver på med. Og så får vi heller ta det som et godt engasjement, at folk virkelig bryr seg om idretten, at de har lyst til å sparke med.
Så neste gang man ser Petter Northug og de andre gullvinnerne, så kan man jo tenke litt på at ikke alt handler om dem, men også skiene deres, og ikke minst det som skjer i smøreboden til Knut Nystad.
Pål André Grinderud har i 20 år vært ansiktet utad for barn av alkoholikere. Selv var han bare 10 år gammel da han måtte ta seg av sin alkoholiserte mor. Nå er han tilbake i hjembygda for å takke dem som hadde hjerterom for ham, og for å holde konsert i sin barndomskirke.
Veggene i mitt hus ramlet ned. Alene sto jeg i nattemørket. Hold hånda mi, sa jeg, men det var ingen hender der.
Sirkelen er sluttet, for nå er Pål André Grinderud, gutten som bar på skammen over å ha en alkoholisert mor, tilbake i hjembygda som 50-åring. I Nedre Eike kirke holder han og sopranen Bodil Arnesen takknemlighetskonsert.
Inne i dette kirkerommet har jeg altså ikke nærmet meg. Jeg har ikke nærmet meg kirketrappa engang. Jeg har vært livredd. Og det jeg har vært aller mest redd for var at de dørene skulle åpne seg, og alt bare skulle komme meg i møte.
Her i Mjøndalen i Buskerud trådde han sine barnesko. Sko som ble for store og fylle for en liten gutt. Som 10-åring mistet han faren og måtte ta seg av sin egen mor.
Men jeg måtte passe på at moren min kom seg til sengs. Det var masse kontroll og sjekking og kontroll og sjekking. Det var det det bestod av. Og så på en måte stryke litt over kinnet når hun endelig hadde sovnet, og så gå tilbake i sengen min. Og så ba jeg til Gud og sa at du må være så snill at det må bli bedre i morgen.
Jeg synes du har blitt så stor.
Ja, jeg har vokst veldig fælt. Jeg har det.
Han går opp gamle spor i dag, til de som hadde hjerterom for ham som barn.
Og jeg husker jo mora di som en nydelig dame.
Mamma var
mørk og pen.
Jeg så jo henne veldig mye berusa, så det var mange ting som jeg skulle ønske å få se på en annen måte. Men det som var litt sånn leit for meg, tror jeg var at det ikke var så mye rom for at jeg kunne fortelle at mor hadde et problem. Men det jeg har sagt i dag til alle som jeg har møtt, er at dere må fortelle, og at åpenhet er gull.
God jul!
Og du også?
Pål André Grinderud mener det er viktig å si takk. Selv om ingen våget å gripe inn da han var liten, ser han viktigheten av at barn som han blir sett. I mange år har han gitt nettopp disse barna et ansikt.
Hei. Det er koselig.
Vet du hva jeg husker? At når jeg var liten, så fikk jeg ekstra kake av deg. Nei, jeg husker så godt. Takk, det blir som i gamle dager. Takk skal du ha. Noen av de føler jeg har vært engler for meg, og de har liksom gjort at jeg holdt ut når jeg tenker på hvor alene jeg var. Men at jeg hadde de små øyeblikka av glede og kjærlighet, det var veldig godt.
På Modum Bad har han fått hjelp til å bearbeide følelsene sine, og fått selvtillit på det arbeidet han har gjort for barn med foreldre som ruser seg.
Fordi at når jeg kom hit, så var det faktisk veldig krise for meg. Og jeg hele tiden tror jeg har vært redd for at jeg ikke skal gjøre det godt nok, at jeg tenker at det er så mange som har hatt samme oppvekst som jeg, har samme oppvekst som meg. Og så har jeg følt liksom, i og med at jeg har vært den som har bringt saken på bane for 20 år siden, så har jeg fortsatt ansvar. Men jeg har jo ikke noe ansvar for hver og en. Hallo? Hallo? Hva er dere åpnet til middag her i dag, da?
I dag har vi her sju.
Jeg er liksom, hei!
Hei, Pål.
Jeg må jo si at første gang jeg var her, så fikk jeg en marsipangris fra dere til jul. Da gruer jeg meg så til jul.
Ja.
Og det har vært mange sterke opplevelser.
Ja. Har det gått på?
Ja, det er bra.
Ja.
Hva er det sterkeste juleminnet du har om moren din?
Det vakreste juleminnet jeg har er at hun kom opp til meg en julaften eller på rommet mitt, og så satt hun seg ved siden av meg på rommet. Og så la hun armen rundt meg, og så sa hun, vet du hva, gutten min, det skal ikke være mer drikking nå. Og det døgnet det varte, det er det sterkeste og fineste døgnet jeg har hatt. Og jeg takket til Gud, og jeg ba til alle om hvor flott det var at mor hadde sluttet og sånn. Men akkurat det øyeblikket så skjønte jeg, og tenkte i etterkant, hun ville. Det var ikke det at hun ikke ville, men hun klarte ikke. Så hyggelig at du kom. Hei! Så koselig, hjertelig velkommen.
Tusen takk.
Ja.
Måtte bare.
Hei. Hei, Grun. Takk. Ser du hvor fin jeg er i dag?
Det var så fint.
15 15 takknemlighetskonserter rundt omkring i landet. Den aller siste konserten, hvor temaet er barn som han selv, er også en slags forsoningskonsert.
Men fortsatt berører det meg, for nå våger jeg å se på det. Og det er noe jeg aldri kan glemme, men mor og alle de rundt som ikke så, alle de som burde ha sett, de er tilgitt.
Sport nå, og til en svært etterlengtet seier.
Ja, endelig var det Synnøve Solemdal sin tur. Aldri før har hun vært på pallen i verdenscupen. I dag var hun best av alle på jaktstarten i hoffhilsen, og den mest populære etterpå.
En kø av klemmer.
Når du gjør du det så jævlig bra!
Og en kø av intervjuer.
Det kjennes vel bra ut. Der går vi det.
Ja, det blir litt kaos når du tar din aller første verdenscupseier.
Nå er det veldig mye som skjer, men det er herlig. Det her har jeg drømt om. Eller å vinne i hvert fall.
Synnøve Solemdal jaktet seiersdrømmen som fjerde startende på jaktstarten, og takket være fantastisk skyting kom hun inn til siste stående i delt ledelse.
Bekkerein bommer. Og Synnøve Solemdal kommer til å vinne i hoppelsen! Ja da, ja da, ja da!
Det er helt sykt, det er bare... Jeg gikk jo på så tenkte det er jo ikke store blinka det i dag, og så bare treffe fantastisk. Treffe 19, jeg har aldri truffet meg 18 før, vet du. Så det var rette dagen å gjøre det på.
Med andreplass sørger Tora Berger for norsk totaldominans i hoppfilsen. Men akkurat denne gang havnet dronningen i skyggen av kronprinsessen.
Det er Synnøve sin dag i dag, så det synes jeg er veldig greit. Og jeg synes det er kjempeartig å få det til i dag. En seier i laget er nesten som en egen seier, det.
Det gikk ikke like bra for gutta, også i dag gikk det dårlig på standplass. Olena Bjørndalen fikk 1 bom på andre skyting, og det gikk ikke bedre på stående. På den tredje skytinga ble det 2 bom, og han endte som nummer 7. Bjørndalen var best av de norske i dag. Emil Hegle Svendsen gikk seg opp 21 plasser og ble nummer 14 med 4 bom. Jakob Fakk fra Slovenia var best av alle og vant.
Magnus Carlsen spilte i dag remis mot Hikaru Nakamura i London Chess Classic. Det betyr at han har slått Garry Kasparovs verdensrekord på 2851 poeng, for når den offisielle listen kommer 1. januar, skal han ha minst 2856 poeng. Anette Sagen lå på 4. plass etter første omgang i den kommende Olbakken i Sochi, men slår til med 98 meter i andre omgangen og havner til slutt på 3. plass for andre gang av 2 mulige denne sesongen. Amerikanske Sarah Hendrickson vant foran Sara Takanashi. Anders Bardal lå på 6. plass etter herrenes første omgang og hopper godt også i den andre. Lander til slutt på 101,5 meter og hopper seg opp til 5. plass. Gregor Schlierenzauer hopper i andre omgang 105,5 meter og vinner sin andre verdenscupseier for sesongen.
Det er også langrenn i dag. Du kan se skøytesprint fra Quebec på NRK2 akkurat nå, og finalene de er i gang. Så engelsk fotball, både Chelsea og Arsenal har vist svak form så langt i serien, men i dag snudde det for London-klubbene.
Rafael Benitez uten ligaseier som ny Chelsea-manager fikk se Fernando Torres sette inn 1-0 i Sunderland etter 10 minutter. Samme mann til 2-0 på straffespark, før gjestene punkterte oppgjøret da Juan Mata satte inn en retur til 3-0. Adam Johnson reduserte til 3-1 på merkelig vis. Uansett Chelseas første ligaseier på 7 kamper, og det på høy tid. Også Arsenal med lite poeng i det siste tok imot West Bromwich og fikk et billig straffespark midtveis i første omgang. Mikel Arteta sendte uansett hjemmelaget i ledelsen. Midtveis i andre omgang og nytt straffespark til Arsenal. Arteta igjen til 2-0 på nøyaktig samme vis. Arsenals andre seier, også det på de 7 siste oppgjørene.
Håndball Norge straks ferdig med sin siste kamp i gruppespillet i EM. Allerede før start mot Ukraina var de norske jentene klare for sluttspill, og kampen den ble mer spennende enn planlagt.
Vi kan da umulig slippe inn mål nå i hvert fall. 6 mot 4, så prøver de seg gjennom på høyrekanten, og så klarer hun på et eller annet mystisk vis å sette den i mål.
Ja, det hele var mystisk. Poengløse Ukraina førte han i hele første omgang, og de gule og blå kunne gå til pause med 11-8-ledelse.
Og etter en begredelig første omgang, så noterer vi at Ukraina leder 11-8 over et lag som har vunnet EM de 4 siste gangene.
Og da Norge mistet et straffekast med 2 spillere mer på banen, så det virkelig mørkt ut. Men så snudde det plutselig, og Norge gikk fra 11-15 til 17-15, og det i løpet av en 17-minutters periode.
Og nå kampen straks slutt, og Norge leder 18-17.
Vi skal se at nesten hele Sør-Norge får påfyll av snø.
Lavtrykk på vei mot Vestlandet, og nedbøren begynt, som vi ser på radaranimasjonen her. Og denne nedbøren den vil trekke videre østover i løpet av natta. Og dette lavtrykket ligger i Norskehavet. Det vil gå ganske raskt sørover langs kysten mot Danmark i morgen i økende vind, og da mye nedbør, særlig sør for Finse. Nord på Østlandet blir det lite påfyll til skiføre. Nord-Norge lite endring, fortsatt kaldt og forholdsvis tørt. Spitsbergen, her blir det snø av og til, og sørlig opp i liten kuling. Troms og Finnmark, her blir det mye oppholdsvær, kan bli litt snø i grensetraktene. Og så vil det blåse sørøstlig kuling utsatte steder, opp i sterk kuling mellom Torsvåg og Nordkapp først på dagen. Nordland får også mest pent vær, kan gå litt snø også her i grensetraktene, og kanskje en og annen byge i Vest-Lofoten. Også her litt vind i fjordstrøkene. Trøndelag og Møre og Romsdal får også pent vær for det meste, kan bli litt snø på Sunnmøre, og i Trøndelag kan nok også blåse sørøstlig kuling utsatte steder. På Vestlandet blir det sørlig sterk kuling, kanskje liten storm i natt og snø, men allerede i morgen tidlig så minker både vind og nedbør. Og utover ettermiddagen så blir det stort sett oppholdsvær. Nedbøren den trekker da østover, vi får snø, men mest nedbør får vi nok sør og vest for Mjøsa. Lokalt mye nedbør i ytre strøk av Agder. Og mest nedbør i fjelltraktene sør for Finse. Med vind og nedbør blir det også en del snøfokk og lokalt vanskelig kjøreforhold. Vinden øker også til kuling på kysten og i fjellet, men utover ettermiddagen lettere vær igjen. Nedbøren holder seg nok lengst i Agder og Telemark. Vi har også noen byger sentralt i Europa, også øst i Middelhavet. Garantert sol, da må man nok til Spania. Og det kaldt nå i hele Europa, og svært kald luft nedover mot Italia og Balkan, som vi ser minusgrader også i Berlin. På mandagen stort sett bra vær fortsatt i Nord-Norge, litt snø i Øst-Finnmark. Og nå blir det bra vær igjen, også i Sør-Norge. Kanskje noen byger langs kysten først på dagen, og en del vind, men denne minker utover dagen. Og på tirsdag, lite vind og fint vær, litt mer skyer, og kanskje en annen byge i ytre strøk fra Sogn og Fjordane og nordover. I Nord-Norge også en annen byge i kystområdene, flest nord i Nordland og i Troms. Og på Spitsbergen stort sett oppholdsvær.
I denne sendingen så vi at en ny internasjonal klimaavtale på plass. 200 land har blitt enige om å forlenge Kyoto-avtalen. Det skjedde på overtid i Doha i Qatar i ettermiddag. Men klimatoppmøtet ble ikke enige om strengere utslippsmål, og det skuffer klimaforkjemperne.
De utslippskuttene som nå ligger på bordet ikke nok til å forhindre dramatiske klimaendringer. Det er bra vi har fått en videreføring av Kyoto-protokollen, men sannheten at sjansen for å unngå svært alvorlige klimaendringer i ferd med å glippe ut av hendene på oss.
I Søndagsrevyen i morgen blir det mye om den forestående Nobelutdelingen, men vi skal også møte Ingeborg Eikeland. Hun har viet hele livet sitt til misjonen og til å hjelpe dem som trenger det i Kongo. Nylig ble hun tvangsevakuert fra landet på grunn av nye uroligheter.
Det var så mange av de fattige, og hvem var de fattigste av de fattige? Men de gikk med til siste øre, og far ble glad.
Så tar vi med at Norge slo Ukraina 18-17 i det siste gruppespillet i EM, og med det lørdagsrevyen slutt.
Og vi ønsker alle god kveld.
Ja, riktig person skal plasseres i riktig yrke rett etter lotto.
Ta av deg på overkroppen.
Kan du fortelle litt om denne nye filmen din?
Nå skal vi ta det helt på hjørnet. Hvis jeg bare var en støvkom...
By og Rønning. I kveld på NRK1.
En trimdronning, en dansebandronning og 2 komikere.
Jeg egentlig veldig imponert, for jeg tenker at det dødsvanskelig. Men det ligner jo ikke helt på den som står på den piddestallen der.
Og jeg glemte Tokele i dag, gitt.
Kommer de til å bli lurt av de ukjente i kveld på NRK1?
Ja, vet du hvordan en keramiker eller en konditor ser ut? Det 2 av yrkene det skal gjettes på i De ukjente om 10 minutter. Nå det klart for lottotrekning. Riktig god lørdag alle sammen. Nå det bare 16 dager igjen til julaften. Det betyr at det kun 2 uker igjen til årets siste superlottotrekning. Det ser ut til at superlottopotten denne gangen vil vokse opp i ca. 46 millioner kroner. Og har du spilt lotto de siste 10 ukene, eller spiller lotto frem til 22. desember, ja, da du med i trekningen om denne store potten. Men nå, folkens, skal vi se hvordan det går i joker. Første tallet 4. På onsdag så premien for 5 rette på ca. 113 000 kroner. Ikke verst nå i desember. Neste tall 3. Men du vet, her kan du få en liten premie om du har minst 2 tall på rett plass. Så har vi 5. 0. Og 5. 5, 0, 5, 3 og 4. For 2 tall på rett plass får du 30 kroner. 3 rette gir 165. 4 rette gir 2270. Og for 5 rette får du i kveld 58 990 kroner. Gratulerer! Nå det på tide med en liten seerkonkurranse, og skal du være med, så må du ta fra mobilen din nå. Vi spør, hvilken norsk kvinne vant verdenscuprennet i skiskyting i dag? Var det Tora Berger, Synnøve Solemdal, eller overraskende nok Tiril Eckhoff? Send SMS med kodeord joker, mellomrom og svaret ditt til 2030. Første person med riktig svar får en egen værstasjon i posten. Dagens jokerkandidat en dame fra Stavanger. Men hun ikke med oss på telefon i kveld, så Embla skal til pers, og vi skal se på premiestigen. Rogalandskvinnen kan i kveld stikke av med vel 2 millioner kroner. Men i tidlig julegave har hun allerede fått 425 000. Nå skal vi se hvordan det går, og vi spiller med disse tallene i kveld. 6, 2, 4, 5 og 0. Og vi begynner bakerst, Embla, vi med det enkle tallet 0. Her går du. Ja, og du går opp. Til 3, og Rogalandskvinnen oppe i 531 000. Så var det 5. Hva gjør du her, Embla? Du går ned til en 7, tilbake igjen på 425 000. Tallet 4, går du opp eller ned, Embla? Opp. Rett joker der! Det betyr at vi kan gratulere den heldige Stavanger-damen med 2 124 000 i kveld. De siste månedene har vi presentert denne rundens drømmekandidater. Og her har du et lite gjensyn. Mortens store drøm å spille piraten Pelle i Kaptein Sabeltann. Og Ann-Helene vil ta med seg sin bakeglade datter på sjokoladefabrikk. Rino vil bygge nytt skytterhus på Napp i Lofoten. Mens for Gro drømmen å dra på blomsterauksjon i Nederland. Anlaug og sønnen vil bygge hønsehus på eldresenteret. Tommy drømmer om å dra på studietur til Hollywood. Mens Hanne vil sende sin fetter og onkel på fotballtur til Manchester. For Bjørn drømmen å lære hundemassasje. Mens for Anita den store drømmen å få en liten rolle i Hotel Cæsar. Og som skal få sin drøm oppfylt, det er opp til deg. Og fra i kveld så kan du gå inn på nett og stemme på din favoritt. Som nevnt vil årets siste Superlotto-sending være den 22. desember, altså om 2 uker. Da skal vi avsløre hvem dere har stemt frem av våre drømmere, og vi får endelig vite om Superlotto-potten skal gå til en eller mange spillere. Trolig vil potten komme opp i 46 millioner, og per i dag har denne potten vokst opp til 36 millioner kroner. Men nå skal vi ha vanlig lottotrekning. Lottokulen er allerede i gang med å blande seg inn i trommelen. Hvem kommer først opp da? I kveld er det 21. 21. Legger seg til i rekka 29. Husk at første premiepotten i dag er på ca. 12 millioner. Og her kom 13. 13. Og 6. 6. Cirka 14 000 rekker som er med i kampen om første premien nå. Her kom 34. 34. Og da dalte det ned i 1305 rekker. 5. 5. Og kommer tallet 28 nå til slutt. Da blir det gullotto neste lørdag. Men her kom tallet 2. 2. Så er det tid for 3 tilleggstall. 12 det første. 12. Og der kom 17, 17. Og til slutt 20, 20. Da skal vi se på vinnerrekka i stigende rekkefølge. 2, 5, 6, 13, 21, 29, 34. Og tilleggstallene 12, 17 og 20. 4 pluss 1 gir 45 kroner. 5 rette gir 195. 6 retter 6115 kroner. 6 pluss 1, her får du 73 945. Og for full pott blir det i kveld 5 751 395 kroner til 2 nybakte lottomillionærer. Nå er dagens SMS-konkurranse avsluttet, og dagens store overraskelse i verdenscuprennet i skiskyting var at Synnøve Solemdal stakk av med seieren, mens Tore Berger kom på en flott andreplass. Og vi gratulerer så masse. Det gjør vi også til første person som sendte oss riktig svar. Jokerkandidaten fikk i kveld joker på 3. tallet og vant over 2 millioner kroner. Og så fikk vi altså 2 nye lottomillionærer. Vi ønsker deg en riktig fin lørdag.
Ta av deg på overkroppen.
Kan du fortelle litt om denne nye filmen din?
Nå skal vi ta det helt i gang. Hvis jeg bare var
By og Rønning. I kveld på NRK1.
På NRK.no Sport kan du nå se inntil 9 direktesendinger.
Veldig bra! Kjempehopp!
Få med deg alle vinterens gyllene øyeblikk.
Men bak der kommer Marit Jørgen.
NRK.no Sport.
På NRK Super.no finner du julekongens egen ridderkalender. Bak hver luke finner du nye spill hvor du kan vinne utstyr til din egen ridder. NRK Super.no.
Og hos Anne Lindmo i kveld møter du den ekte julekongen spilt av Vetle Kvenhild Verring. Dit kommer også pappaen hans, spilt av Bjarte Tjøstheim og Herborg Kråkevik. Nå er det klart for De ukjente.
Ja, takk for turen. Ha det bra. Ja, et av kveldens yrker er altså trailersjåfør. Denne traileren er 17 meter lang, og det gjelder å rygge den innover i bakgården uten å velte kasser og alt som er. Dette er utrolig vanskelig, mye vanskeligere enn du tror. Så det gjelder å velge riktig person, ellers kan det bli ganske dyrt. Hjertelig velkommen til De ukjente. Man skal ikke skue hunden på hårene, heter det, men vi har vel alle tatt feil av folk en eller annen gang. Hvorfor gjør vi det? Kanskje fordi vi dømmer etter utseende, og det kommer du ikke langt med i kveld når du skal gjette hvem som jobber med hva. Kveldens 6 yrker er bunadtilvirker, keramiker, steppeinstruktør, frisør, konditor og trailersjåfør. Og dette er kveldens hovedpersoner. Petros, 69 fra Oslo. Hege, 42 fra Sandnes. Joar, 49 fra Åfjord. Jeanette, 41 fra Eidsvoll. Så har vi Per, 54 fra Røros. Og Ella Jiri, 41 fra Skjetve. Velkommen skal dere være. 2 lag skal i kveld konkurrere om å være den beste menneskekjenneren. De skal altså rett og slett resonere seg frem til det de tror er fasiten. Så vi ser hvordan det går da på lag A. Trimdronningen Kari Jakkesson og dansebanddronning Jenny Jensen. På lag B. Komikerparet Kristine Riis og Bjørn Gustafsson. Velkommen. Ja, jeg må jo bare si dere er så vakre og pene i tøyet. Og det er selvfølgelig til ære for vår bunadtilvirker. Vi skal komme tilbake til det etter hvert. Er du komfortabel i bunad, Kari?
Sånn passe. Det er noen lag å komme gjennom her, men jeg føler meg veldig fin. Da.
Ja, ikke sant? Det er veldig staselig. Du, Jenny, du har jo vært artist i mange år, men du har jo hatt ganske mye forskjellige jobber. Du blant annet grøftegraver.
Ja.
Ja. Hvordan var det?
Det var 8 somre på rad for Statskraft. Ja. Og det var jo fysisk fostring, så det var supert.
Og du har kjørt stor bil og...
Ja, lastebil og buss og brodert min egen bunad.
Hva du ikke kan. Kari, hva drømte du om å bli som barn, egentlig?
Lege, faktisk.
Men du var opptatt av helse da, eller?
Alltid vært det, altså. Men jeg har alltid vært den som liksom hiver meg på toget i forbifarten, så det har blitt litt forskjellig, men helse har det jo blitt da.
Helse har det blitt. Men du, hvordan synes du det er lett å se på folk hva de jobber med?
Nei, helt umulig. Og det har sluttet å trekke noen konklusjoner. For lengst skal jeg vite at man tar så feil.
Ikke sant? Det er jo en del folk som tar feil, holdt på å si av oss to, for jeg blir ofte tatt for å være deg.
I like måte, du.
Åja, sier du det?
Hei, Nadia, sier de. Sier nei, det var ikke helt... Men noen ganger så sier jeg bare hei, ja.
Det er litt sånn, se på meg liksom, ja, du skal ut og trimme nå. Jeg bare, hæ, nei. Men særlig for eksempel sånn, jeg har opplevd å stå i kassa på en fredag ettermiddag og kjøpe litt sånn pizza, sjokolade og masse snop, og så får jeg sånne lange blikk. Å ja, du unner deg, det er du som er så sprek. Jeg bare, hæ? Vi skal se litt etter hvert hvor gode menneskekjennere dere to er. Lag B, Kristine og Bjørn, hvordan er det? Altså, Bjørn, du er jo utdannet skuespiller i Sverige, men du drømte om å bli noe helt annet?
Advokat vill jag bli från början. Och agent då. Men det var för jag hade sett så här på Ally McBeal och James Bond och sånt. Sen fattar man att man ville vara advokat fast att folk såg på när man var advokat.
Och då var det lurt att bli skuespiller.
Ja.
Jeg kjenner at jeg klarer ikke helt å ta deg seriøst med den hatten. Beklager.
Ja, og nå er jeg her, altså.
Ja, nå er du her.
Ja, så kjent litt på.
Ja, ikke sant? Kristine, du har vært i P3, Løvebakken, Brille, men du ville jo egentlig bli noe annet enn komiker, du?
Ja, jeg hadde kjempelyst til å bli håndballspiller på landslaget. Og det trodde jeg at jeg skulle bli, helt til jeg ble 16. Og begynte å oppdage litt sånn andre ting i livet. Da slutta jeg. Ja.
Du, foran dere nå så har dere altså skjermer med bilder av de ukjente, og så står alle yrkene der. Så det handler om i kveld er jo rett og slett å stokke kortene riktig. Og det er disse yrkene det handler om. Vi skal gjennom praktiske øvelser på alle yrkene, så etter hvert så vil de få god bakgrunn for egne meninger. Men jeg tenker nå aller først, bare på
BBC World Service. Coming up in From Our Own Correspondent, the poisonous legacy of chemical weapons in Iraq.
It will take 100 years for us to come to terms with what happened here, one woman tells me. This is a permanent scar in our hearts.
The impact of war on children in Syria.
Where are you staying? With my relatives. And you? In the basement. Our house was burnt out. And yours? It was demolished. It's not there anymore.
Also, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The traditional ways of one Indian industry.
Twirling a white, magnificent military moustache, Devraj, the soldierly senior advisor, said to me, "This regimental system worked for the British, and it has worked throughout my 50 years in tea."
And why the Norwegian Seafood Council reckons we can't stomach good food. All that and much more coming up here on From Our Own Correspondent, after the news.
BBC News with David Austin. Almost 200 nations at UN climate talks in Qatar have agreed to extend until 2020 the only legally binding agreement for combating global warming, the Kyoto Protocol. The treaty had been due to expire at the end of this month. Roger Harrabin reports.
There were cheers from delegates for the Qatari chairman, a former head of the oil cartel OPEC. He emerged as an unlikely hero when he ruthlessly crushed a Russian attempt to delay the conference in a wrangle for better terms. It's been a long fortnight, with diplomats tidying up remnants of the existing Kyoto Climate Protocol to clear the path for negotiations on a new deal, binding rich and poor nations alike in tackling climate change. That's due to be signed by 2015. One landmark move was an agreement acknowledging the need to recompense poor nations for irreparable damage.
The former Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi has confirmed that he'll attempt to return to power at the general election to be held next year. He told reporters he was worried about the impact of the economic policies being brought in by the current government. Alan Johnston reports.
Over the last few days, it became clear that Mr. Berlusconi would be attempting a comeback, and now he's confirmed it. Speaking to reporters in Milan, he said he was returning to the front line of party politics out of a sense of responsibility to the country. However, Mr. Berlusconi's many opponents will see his effort to return to power in a cynical light. They'll argue that he is simply intent on staying in the political game in order to be able to defend his personal, business and other interests.
The Egyptian military has warned of disastrous consequences if the rival political forces in the country fail to resolve their differences through dialogue. The statement was made on national television. From Cairo, John Line.
This is the first time the Egyptian military has expressed an opinion in the current crisis, though tanks are already stationed outside the presidential palace. The wording of the military statement immediately provoked fears that the military would intervene and take power, as it did after the fall of Hosni Mubarak. Sources close to the military have been quick to stress that is not about to happen. And a senior official from the ruling Muslim Brotherhood also welcomed the statement, describing it as balanced and neutral. However, state media have already reported that President Morsi may be about to give the military new powers to help the police maintain order.
Tens of thousands of Palestinians have given a rapturous reception to the leader of Hamas, Khaled Mishal, at a rally in Gaza to mark the 25th anniversary of the militant movement. Addressing the crowd from a stage with a huge model of a Hamas rocket towering behind it, Mr. Mishal ruled out any territorial concessions or recognition of Israel and called for Palestinian unity. It's Mr. Mishal's first visit to Palestinian territory in nearly 40 years. World News from the BBC. The Pakistani President Asif Ali Zardari has called the Pakistani schoolgirl Malala Yousafzai a remarkable girl and a credit to his country. He was speaking during a visit to a hospital in Britain where she's been receiving specialist medical care since October. Malala Yousafzai was shot in the head by the Taliban in an attempt to silence her campaign to promote women's education in northwest Pakistan. The former South African President Nelson Mandela has been admitted to hospital in Pretoria. The office of the current President, Jacob Zuma, said Mr. Mandela was doing well and there was no cause for alarm. Andrew Harding reports from Johannesburg.
The 94-year-old veteran of South Africa's struggle against apartheid is undergoing tests at a hospital in Pretoria. There's no information yet about what prompted his admission today. The presidency said only that Mr. Mandela would receive medical attention from time to time consistent with his age. It's almost 2 years since Mr. Mandela's unexpected hospitalisation with a respiratory infection triggered a major health scare. In February of this year, the presidency warned the public in advance that Mr. Mandela was undergoing abdominal surgery.
North Korea says it might reconsider the schedule for a planned rocket launch. Earlier this week, Pyongyang said it would carry out a long-range rocket test between the 10th and the 22nd of December, after a similar test failed in April. No specific reasons for a possible postponement have been given, but experts say preparations for the launch may have been delayed by a heavy snowfall. The long-serving president of Zimbabwe, Robert Mugabe, has vowed to fight, in his words, like a wounded beast to retain power in elections due next year. He was addressing thousands of supporters at the close of ZANU-PF's annual conference in the central city of Gweru. The party has formally endorsed Mr. Mugabe as their presidential candidate, despite reports that the 88-year-old is in poor health. That's the BBC News.
Hello, I'm Pascal Harter and welcome to this edition of From Our Own Correspondent on the BBC World Service. Glad to have you with us. But a word of caution for you from the elders of Papua New Guinea.
If you hear her laughter, your mind will be sapped and your will be no longer your own.
Also, which country can't get enough of food that smells like this?
Take a selection of overripe cheeses. Place them in the midst of a pile of dirty, wet soccer kit. Leave for a week.
We won't shy away from the controversial topics, and sometimes the downright offensive.
A columnist in one of the country's most popular English-language newspapers recently asked the question, are Indians by nature unhygienic? His answer, which angered a number of readers, was yes.
Our correspondent reached a bit more of a nuanced conclusion. See what you think. That's coming up. We start, though, in Syria, where as the conflict escalates, children are increasingly becoming casualties, on a scale that can only have a serious effect on the next generation. Lena Sinjab.
2 little children sitting and chatting on a side street in a Damascus suburb. In the cold winter, they were wearing flip-flops and hardly any warm clothes. As I walked past them, I overheard this conversation. Where are you staying? With my relatives. And you? In the basement. Our house was burnt out. And yours? It was demolished. It's not there anymore. In Syria, it has become normal to hear people talking about loss like this. Wael came from Daraya. Hussam lost his home in Douma. They no longer go to school or play the same games. These days, they are familiar with the sounds of shelling. Childhood itself has changed here. I remember one long street of wreckage in Baba Amro district in Homs. Not a single building escaped the shelling. All were burnt or destroyed. No signs of life. The only sounds I could hear were the gunfire and my own footsteps crunching over broken glass. At the end of the road, I saw the figure of a boy. He leaned his head out of a narrow alley, curious to know who had come to visit his deserted neighborhood. I walked up to his house. He, his mother, and his aunt were the only people left in the area. What do you do during the day? Do you play with your friends? I asked him. Those traditional questions for children. Then I realized how irrelevant they were in Baba Amro, where there is no sound of laughter, no echo of footballs hitting the walls while kids argue about who's losing. The boy had a shy smile. He simply said, I don't have friends anymore. They all died. They were hit by a rocket and died. His smile disappeared. He covered his eyes, lowered his head in despair, and walked away into the alley. In Syria, people don't talk anymore about the best education for their children, or plan what they can do with them over the weekend, or about finding them a new game or a new book. Instead, people talk about death. They see blood and body parts scattered in the street, and sometimes the pale faces of children who might have been laughing or maybe scared in the moments before they heard the sound of shelling. Rabia was one of them. He's 12 years old, loves school, and wants to be a teacher. He went out one day to buy bread for his family, but a MiG warplane was firing on his neighborhood in Harasta, east of Damascus. He ran as fast as he could, but ended up losing an arm and a leg. When I met him, Rabia was trying to be composed. His eyes seemed to be affected too, but there was still a smile on his face. "I'll be a teacher one day," he told me. These children are still desperate for normality. Whenever the word spreads in an area that supplies of books and toys have arrived, they gather together, eager to read, paint, sing and dance, still eager to live. Recently I visited a house full of children from Homs, Idlib, Hama and Damascus. As soon as they saw the colored pens and paper, they started drawing homes and revolutionary flags. One stood up and started chanting one of the revolution songs. Excitement filled the room. The children lined up clapping and jumping, just as they used to do in street protests, their hands up, making victory signs.
But could there be worse to come for the civilians in Syria? The US has warned the government of Bashar al-Assad not to use the chemical weapons in its arsenal. But then remember the assertions that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And who would use chemical weapons on their own people anyway? Well, actually, Saddam Hussein did. On the Kurdish city of Halabja. Ed Butler has been there.
An open path winds up a hill, dusty headstones on each side. All commemorate in their own way the enormous mass grave that lies beneath our feet. They recall families, in some cases an entire streetful of the dead, men, women and children gassed together on a single day in 1988. Aris Abid Akram comes here every week. He remembers the Iraqi planes flying overhead, the sweet stench of the gas, and then being overwhelmed by it and passing out. It took 2 days for him to recover sufficiently to make his way back home, and then he discovered the terrible truth. Brothers, sisters, parents, grandparents, cousins, aunts and uncles, all lying dead in the family basement. Despite his own injuries, he somehow managed, with the help of a local truck driver, to bring them all here. And here he buried them, all 24 of his dead relatives, with his own hands. "God helped me to do it," he says simply. "You would have done the same in my place." The attack is thought to have been an act of punishment by Saddam Hussein. It was the tail end of the Iran-Iraq war, and some Kurds had been seen to celebrate a recent Iranian advance. So, after 2 days of conventional bombing, the Iraqi Air Force moved in with a cocktail of nerve agents like sarin, tabun and VX, and they also dropped mustard gas, the slowest killer of them all, which still pollutes the very ground on which we stand. Pointing to the family headstone, Aris sheds a tear and then quietly wipes it away. There's still pain, he says. It never stops. It's a common refrain among the survivors in Halabja. Many still carry chronic injuries to the lungs and the eyes. Many more have children with birth defects. Rates of cancer are high. But it's the emotional wounds that remain the deepest. Aras shakes our hands as we prepare to leave the cemetery and says that he's glad we've come. It's better that everyone remembers, he says. No one must forget. But there's something else he wants to say. Apparently, several months after the attack, he found himself with other refugees in a camp in another part of Kurdistan. Saddam's soldiers came by. They started rounding up the young men, he said, forcibly conscripting them into the Iraqi army. Remarkably, Aras found himself posted as a guard in Fallujah, supervising one of Saddam's biggest and most lethal chemical weapons facilities there. The awful irony of this situation took me aback. "How on earth could you stand it?" I asked him. "Well, I had no choice," he tells me. "I had to do what I was told, or I would have been killed. All the same, as I saw them making up those bombs, all I could think was, who's next? Who else will they use this on?" It's nearly a quarter of a century since Halabja was attacked, and Saddam and his henchman Chemical Ali are both dead, their convictions by a tribunal and their executions based significantly on what happened here. But the Kurdish regional government wants action against the manufacturers of the lethal chemicals as well. A number of companies, most of them Russian and German, it's thought, have been implicated. "It will take 100 years for us to come to terms with what happened here," one woman tells me. "But if the world finally recognizes these crimes, if those responsible pay for what they helped to create, then at least that will begin to bring us some peace. This is a permanent scar in our hearts."
Ed Butler. This is the BBC World Service. You're listening to From Our Own Correspondent with me, Pascal Harter. Now, what's more your cup of tea? Earl Grey, Darjeeling? Or perhaps you like a drop of Assam? A good cup of that can be pricey, though. But then you are paying for quality, say the managers of the grand old tea estates in India. They could cut corners, but would it be the same? Mark Tully steeps himself in the traditions.
Spending the night in an old-fashioned British Raj bungalow on a tea estate in Assam, I was awoken at 6 in the morning by a siren. For more than 1,000 men and women, this was the alarm call which got them out of bed to prepare for 8 hours plucking tea, planting new tea bushes, weeding, digging ditches, or doing any of the other tasks required to produce high-quality tea. The siren also summoned the planters who managed the estate to a meeting with the senior manager at which he allotted them their work for the day. Assam tea estates looked like a vast billiard tablecloth, acre after acre of squat green tea bushes huddled together and kept flat by regular plucking. The tea estate I stayed on was run in the military manner that my autocratic uncle used to manage his estate during the British Raj. The planters attending the early morning meeting are the officers. They still wear the traditional uniform, shorts and long socks. The senior manager is the commanding officer. He lives in a bungalow whose splendour is a symbol of his authority. Twirling a white, magnificent military moustache, Devraj, the soldierly senior advisor, said to me, "This regimental system worked for the British, and it has worked throughout my 50 years in tea." The soldiers, the workers, live on the estate, in what have always been known as labour lines. Devraj said workers are now looked after from womb to tomb. Apart from their wages agreed by the government and their homes, they get free rations, wood for cooking and electricity. There is a hospital and a school on the estate too. The old-fashioned paternalistic style of management makes workers very expensive. But Devraj opposes reducing their number by mechanizing the tea plucking. Watching women nimbly plucking the bright green new leaves off the top of tea bushes, he explained that machines can't differentiate between stalks and leaves, and went on to say, a mixture of leaves and stalks, which is what you get with a machine, doesn't make good tea. But now the tea estates Devraj supervises may be forced to mechanize, because there's a shortage of people willing to pluck tea and maintain the bushes. The ever-increasing number of smallholders who grow tea beat the estates on price because they don't have the same high costs. The problem is that they don't match the estate's quality. There are also estates which don't maintain the quality of their tea. Devraj insists that no bush on an estate he supervises should be above 40 years old, because after that the quantity and quality of the leaf declines. Nevertheless, uprooting and replanting is very expensive, so a number of estate owners retain bushes as long as they produce some leaf, no matter what its quality may be. Poor quality tea undermines the Assam brand, and it's only because of the brand's reputation for quality that the tea competes with the leaf produced in Kenya and Vietnam, where costs are much lower. So, protecting the brand is vital for Indian tea exports, which have fallen by 12% over the last 5 years.
But I can't see Indians ever going without their homegrown tea. There is also another national habit, not quite so fit for polite conversation, but apparently just as hard to break on the streets of India. Rahul Tandon finds himself suddenly having to explain it.
A few days after we moved to India, my son pointed to a group of men standing in front of a wall near our flat. They were all laughing and joking as they urinated in public. He looked at me, confused, and said, "Why are they doing that?" 5 years on, I'm still trying to find an answer. Travel around the world's largest democracy, and you better watch where you're walking, as you will find men, and it's almost always men, urinating and spitting everywhere. The decision by the authorities in parts of Rajasthan to try and stop men doing it in public by hiring people to blow whistles and beat drums if they see people emptying their bladders has started a debate here. A columnist in one of the country's most popular English-language newspapers recently asked the question, are Indians by nature unhygienic? His answer, which angered a number of readers, was yes. Armed with a copy of his article, I decided to pose the same question to some friends of mine. Bikram, part of India's new young, cash-rich middle class, was the first to answer. After glaring at me for a few seconds, he said, "How can you ask such a stupid question? The answer is quite simple," he added. "There are just not enough toilets here." There were lots of nodding heads around the table. Bikram had a point. India's Rural Development Minister, Jairam Ramesh, recently said that the country needed toilets more than temples. His comments led to protests outside his house, but a few days later he urged women not to get married unless there was a toilet in their new home. There was silence following Bikram's comments. It looked like our discussion was over. But then Tina, a housewife, decided to have her say. "It's not about toilets, it's about a lack of civic sense," adding that just a few hours earlier she had seen a man relieving himself on the street right in front of a public toilet. "It happens all the time," she said, "and it's disgusting." I looked at Bikram, hoping for a response, but he had nothing to say, and pretended that he had to make an urgent call. But a friend of mine from Mumbai, Raju, shook his head. "Have you ever been to a public toilet?" he said. "They stink. I had one near my house," he added, "and they had to knock it down, as you could not walk within 50 meters of it without being physically sick." Tina, though, was now in full flow. "Well, that's because of caste," she said. "We expect people from lower caste to clean toilets. We'll not do it. Until that changes, the problem will remain." Her friend Brinker, next to her, now wanted to say something. Her eyes were fixed on all the men around the table. "Can I ask you guys why we women can wait till we find a toilet, but you men can't?" None of us men around the table dared to answer. As I walked home, I saw a man standing on the pavement. Legs apart, you can guess what he was doing. I asked him in Hindi, "Why could you not wait till you got home or find a toilet?" He looked at me like I was mad. "This is India, sir. This is what we do," he replied. Listening to our conversation was a policeman. I asked him, "Why did you not stop him?" With a smile on his face, he said, "What's the point?" Those words kept ringing in my head as I continued my walk home. How could you solve this problem with that attitude?
That's also something Georgina Kenyon starts to wonder on a visit to Papua New Guinea, where some women are seen in a magical light, but attitudes to others are still very much in the dark.
We could see small lights between the shadows of the tall trees along the Markham River in eastern Papua New Guinea. "Magic fireflies," said my local guide Jacob, as we watched the glow from the males performing their nightly seduction ritual. We could also hear singing, and before long a small group of barefoot young men walked by us, carrying chipped jam jars full of the tiny insects. In the tribal areas outside the cities, some young Papuan men are still taught that if they catch a piece of magic, a firefly, and they offer it as a gift to a woman, then she will fall in love with him. So the men go down to the streams to catch fireflies at night, carrying them while singing courting expedition songs to seek a lover in a neighbouring village. Jacob told me the words from some of these songs. They're much more musical in one of the local languages, but they are still lyrical even when translated into English. "I bring my magic down to the edge of the big river. Young girl, my friend, light a torch for me, split a torch for me, light your magic torch for me." Another one goes, "I found the magic of a firefly at the edge of the stream. I fastened it and kept it." Some highland tribes believe that the sound of waterfalls, streams and rock pools are the singing and laughter of a spirit woman. She also takes the form of the red bird of paradise, swooping with her great long tail feathers through the trees. Jacob had a word of caution for any men within earshot. "If you hear her laughter, your mind will be sapped, and your will be no longer your own. You are certain to fall in love that day." All of this adds up to a picture of a romantic country where women are cherished. But that's not the whole story. Papua New Guinea remains a male-dominated society. There is a dark side to the relationships between the sexes. According to Médecins Sans Frontières, 2 out of 3 women in the country experience domestic violence at some point in their life, and half of women in Papua New Guinea have been raped, usually by their partners. Jacob protests that the international media focuses too much on the violence in his country and very rarely its cultural richness and natural beauty. But I asked him what could be done to stop the violence. Maybe NGOs should work more with local tribes, make use of some of the community laws, and make men more frightened of the consequences of their actions, he told me. Walking in the nearby Owen Stanley Mountains one evening later that week, I watched small luminescent fungi glowing on the trees, while little umbrellas of fluorescent green-capped mushrooms lit up the mossy forest floor. As the magical night enveloped me, my mind turned to dark thoughts of domestic violence. International governments have recently pledged money to help solve the problem. I hope that would work, and that someday the violence would no longer hang over this otherwise beautiful country.
Georgina Kenyon. Now, while Georgina was tramping about in the tropics, Kieran Cook was scaling the sparklingly clean slopes of Norway in midwinter. But with the alluring fragrance of his next meal never far away.
Take a selection of overripe cheeses. Place them in the midst of a pile of dirty, wet soccer kit. Leave for a week. Now you have the nasal-numbing smell of rakfisk, one of the great Norwegian delicacies. I'm in the small town of Fagernes, about 3 hours from Oslo. The snow, spectacular scenery, and that odour, ever-present, hangs in the air. Rakfisk is trout sprinkled with salt and fermented in water for, depending on how smelly you like your fish, up to a year. As the dark sets in and the weather turns cold, Norwegians flock to a festival here in Fagernes devoted to this most, well, captivating of foods. You eat it raw and then swallow a glass of aquavit, says Hervard Helversen, full-time local firefighter, but also the so-called Rakfisk general, in charge of running the festival. All around us, people are eating little cubes of the fish and knocking back quantities of drink. Some people like the aquavit more than the Rakfisk, says Harvard. The drink can kill the smell. I try a few pieces. If you can avoid passing it under your nose, it's not bad. Not unlike a slice of sushi that has been on rather a long bus journey. Rakfisk is a product of very different poverty-stricken times in Norway, when, pre-refrigeration, fish was soaked in airtight barrels of water and salt in autumn, and then, in the depths of winter, and well and truly fermented, taken out and, no doubt with the senses knocked out by alcohol, eaten. Only a generation ago, thousands of Norwegians were forced to leave their country in search of work, emigrating mainly to the US. Rakfisk is seen as signifying something important, a vital, if rather smelly, part of Norway's past. It's among the more expensive dishes you can buy. But then everything in Norway is expensive. A small glass of beer or a sandwich knocks you back $12. The growth since the early 1970s of one of the world's biggest oil and gas industries lies behind much of Norway's present-day wealth. But oil isn't the only reason we are doing so well, says Anna, handing round trays of maturing rakfisk, and with her long blonde hair and startling blue eyes, the image of Nordic well-being. We are a, how you say, prudent people. We are not very showy. We don't like ostentation. Norway has handled its oil wealth very carefully. All but a small percentage of money from the industry is invested in a special fund for the benefit of future generations. When everyone else was throwing around money they didn't have in the years leading up to the global financial crash, Norway kept its purse strings tightly bound. As long as we can ski in winter and go hiking in summer, we are happy, said Anna. And eat rakfisk, she adds with a carefree laugh. I stand in the snow and queue for something to eat. I've had enough of rakfisk. Now an elk burger is certainly something different, and rather succulent to the taste.
Kieran Cook, whose thoughts on rakfisk prompted Norway Seafood to comment on Twitter that some people have no stomach for good food. Well, we always have a good spread from around the world here on From Our Own Correspondent, so do join us again soon.
BBC. With every passing day, the world is getting smaller.
That same debate, which is now going on in Europe, was taking place in Africa. But there was a very clear decision that we would go with the growth strategy rather than the austerity strategy.
And the ripples of global business are reaching further.
China should realize that as they have become very big, they cannot go it alone.
Business Daily explains the world of money from the bottom to the top of the commercial ladder.
Despite the intensity of the crisis, there are still some people who hold very strongly to
to the belief that the markets, particularly the financial markets, are perfectly rational.
With business news from the BBC's global network of reporters and analysis of the big issues affecting world economics today.
We have had now 21 summits in the last 2.5 years to save the euro, and I'm afraid we'll have another 21.
Business Daily from the BBC. On radio, online and on your mobile.
I'm Marco Werman. Ahead on the BBC World Service, it's Boston Calling, our weekly program that reflects the American experience. This week, the beginning of America's love affair with pizza and the end of the road for the Twinkie. Americans love the writings of Tolkien, but it turns out Tolkien wasn't a big fan of America and cancer in the developing world. It's common and often caused by common infections. Those stories and more coming up on Boston Calling after the news.
BBC News with David Austin. Almost 200 nations at climate talks in Qatar have agreed to extend the Kyoto Protocol until 2020. The protocol is the only legally binding plan for combating global warming, even though it'll only cover developed nations whose share of world greenhouse gas emissions is less than 15%. The former Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi has confirmed that he'll attempt to return to power in parliamentary elections next year. He's one of Italy's richest men, and the BBC Rome correspondent says opponents may see his decision as a cynical ploy to help protect his many business and other interests. The Egyptian military has warned of disastrous consequences if the rival political forces in the country fail to resolve their differences through dialogue. An army spokesman said it would not tolerate violence. The opposition has been demanding that President Morsi repeals a decision to grant himself sweeping powers and cancels the referendum on a controversial new constitution. The former South African President Nelson Mandela has been admitted to hospital in Pretoria. The office of the current president, Jacob Zuma, said his admission was for tests. The 94-year-old was doing well and there was no cause for alarm. Mr. Mandela was last admitted to hospital in February when he was treated for a long-standing stomach complaint. Pakistan's President Asif Ali Zardari has visited the Pakistani schoolgirl Malala Yousafzai at a hospital in Britain. Ms. Yousafzai was shot in the head by the Taliban for her campaign to promote women's education in northwest Pakistan. She was flown to Birmingham in October. Representatives from the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo and M23 rebels are gathering in the Ugandan capital Kampala for peace talks. A week ago, the rebels withdrew from the key eastern city of Goma, but threatened to retake the city if their demands were not met. BBC News.
Hello, I'm Marco Werman, and this is Boston Calling from the BBC. It's our program sampling how America hears the world and interacts with it. Good to be with you again. I present the weekday program for American Public Radio called The World. It's produced by Public Radio International, WGBH in Boston, and of course the BBC. We like to think of Boston Calling as our tasting menu. This week,
when the curator took it out of the box, it was glittering, it was twinkling, and when he put it away, it felt like the lights went out in the room.
The cult of The Hobbit, in America particularly, seems to be responding to this sort of failure in engagement with our political and social situation.
Earlier, Cookie said, I don't know what he would have said. He didn't speak English. And since I'm not doing so well in Italian, I'm not sure what he would have said. He probably would have said, so we'll open tomorrow.
Dazzling gemstones, Middle Earth, and the spiritual home of New York pizza struggling to reopen after Superstorm Sandy, all ahead. First, though, America has waged war on cancer for more than 40 years. But in developing countries, the fight has barely begun. All this week on our program for American listeners, we've been meeting patients, doctors, and public health advocates on the front lines of cancer's new battleground. People often assume that in developing countries, cancer isn't a big problem. They assume the real health problems there are infectious diseases like HIV and malaria. Those diseases are real problems, but in addition, in places like sub-Saharan Africa, infections can sometimes trigger cancer. The series reporter is Joanne Silberner.
More than half a century ago, an Irish physician named Dennis Burkitt moved to Uganda and opened a medical clinic. He was struck by the large number of children with grotesque facial swellings that often grew large enough to choke and kill. It was a type of cancer he'd never seen back home. The cancer came to be called Burkitt's lymphoma. Today, on the pediatric ward at the Uganda Cancer Institute, the beds are filled with children with Burkitt's. It's the most common childhood cancer in equatorial Africa. Dr. Abrahams Omeding says the cancer starts with an infection.
Burkitt's lymphoma is associated with a virus called Epstein-Barr virus.
Epstein-Barr is also the virus that causes mononucleosis, but in parts of sub-Saharan Africa, it can initiate Burkitt's lymphoma, with malaria playing some sort of role. Omeding says many people don't realize that infections can cause cancer.
People usually think cancers are usually caused either by bad habits, smoking, alcohol, growing old, exposure to radiations or chemical.
Those things can trigger cancer, but so can bacteria called H. pylori that cause ulcers and sometimes stomach cancer. The parasite responsible for the tropical disease schistosomiasis can lead to bladder cancer. Cervical cancer is caused by the human papillomavirus. And there's more, says Omeding.
We've got liver cancer. It's associated with hepatitis B virus. We've got Kaposi sarcoma.
Kaposi sarcoma is caused by a virus that attacks people with weak immune systems, people with HIV, and it's in epidemic proportions in Uganda.
The list is long, so you can definitely see, these are the most common cancers that we see, and all of them are actually virus related. Different in the U.S.
Very different in the U.S. In North America, only 1 in 25 cancers can be blamed on infectious agents. In developing countries, it's 1 of every 4 cancers, according to a recent study in the medical journal The Lancet. The reason? Poor sanitation in developing countries means greater exposure to germs. In addition, people in places like sub-Saharan Africa aren't likely to be vaccinated against viruses that can cause cancer, such as the hepatitis B virus. 8,800 miles from Kampala in Seattle, Washington, scientists at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center are trying to figure out how exactly viruses cause cancer.
You don't want to touch anything without the gloves on.
In Mei Li Wang's laboratory, scientists get shipments from Uganda every other month.
If it's blood sample or tissue, they will come in dry ice.
The samples go in freezers that line one wall. The samples are part of a study to determine when children are infected by the virus associated with Burkitt's lymphoma and how long after that the cancer occurs. Wang's boss, Larry Corey, is head of the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center, and he says the work is aimed at one goal.
Can we intervene, alter the underlying development of cancer by attacking the virus?
The biological link between infections and cancers works like this. Invading organisms infect cells and disrupt the cell's normal workings. Corey says the Epstein-Barr virus, for example, infects immune system cells called B cells and causes them to grow.
And the more they grow, the more they divide. The more they divide, the more the chance there is of an alteration of the genetic material during the division phase.
That alteration causes cells to grow out of control, and that's cancer. It happens all too often, says Corey. But there's good news about infectious organisms and cancer, he says. The link between the two can be broken.
If you know an infection is the cause of cancer, if you attack the infection, you can actually prevent the cancer.
It's already happening with the HPV vaccine, which protects against many of the viruses that cause cervical cancer and some other cancers. Then there's hepatitis B, which can lead to liver cancer. That's one of the leading causes of cancer deaths in China. But thanks to vaccine programs that began in the 1990s, liver cancer deaths there have begun to drop. There's no vaccine yet that can prevent children in Uganda from getting Burkitt's lymphoma. But Corey's scientists in Seattle and their colleagues in Kampala are working on it together. Corey's long-term dream is vaccines against all infections related to cancer, which would drop the world's cancer death rate by about 20%.
Joanne Silberner reporting from Seattle. Her story was produced in partnership with the Pulitzer Center on Crisis Reporting. We have a link to Joanne's entire series about cancer in the developing world at bbcworldservice.com/Boston Calling. Time now to introduce you to Dom Pedro. Now, it's not a new brand of tequila. It's the nickname given to an extraordinary gem. To be more precise, Dom Pedro is the largest cut piece of aquamarine ever known, and it went on display this week in the National Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C., and there's quite a story behind it. Washington Post reporter Brian Vostok got a sneak preview.
It felt like this gem was alive. When the curator took it out of the box, it was like a flash of light. It was glittering, it was twinkling, and when he put it away, it felt like the lights went out in the room. It was just spectacular.
How big is it, and what does it look like?
It's over a foot tall, and it's an obelisk, and oddly, it's kind of the shape of the Washington Monument. It's got a pyramid tip, and on the back of it, there are all of these starburst cuts. And the gem cutter cut it that way to reflect all of the light going into the gem back at the viewer. He calls it total reflection. And I have to say, I think he achieved total reflection.
Wow. So the gem is known as aquamarine. I don't know it very well, but apparently you can tell by the name it's going to be blue. But how blue is aquamarine?
It varies from kind of greenish blue to really deep Caribbean sea blue. And this gem is on the bluer end of the scale, which is one of the reasons why it's so unique. And when it came out of the ground, the crystal that this gem came from was about 3 feet long. It weighed 60 pounds. And the miners who pulled it out of the mine, they actually dropped it when it came out of the mine. And it broke into 3 pieces. But the biggest piece was still big enough to cut this giant gem. And it's one of the biggest gems ever cut.
What a nightmare for those miners who dropped this incredible... What happened to the other 2 pieces?
Well, the other 2 pieces were cut up into typical jewelry, small pieces of jewelry, and sold off for cash. But, you know, a German gem dealer heard about this crystal, and he wanted to preserve the size because it was such a unique piece.
So you write that now it's the largest cut piece of aquamarine ever known. What's going to happen to it, and will it be admired in the same way that, you know, other great gems like the Hope Diamond have been revered over the years?
Absolutely. It was given to the Smithsonian Institution as a permanent gift by a couple in Palm Beach, Florida, who ended up buying Dom Pedro about 12 years ago. And they decided it needed to be seen by the public, that it was such a wonder of the natural world that it belonged to everybody. And it's going to be about 30 feet from the Hope Diamond, and I think it's going to be a strong competitor for the most visited gem, or most visited object even, in that museum. The Hope Diamond gets 5 million visitors a year, and the Dom Pedro is going to be right at the entrance to that gallery, and it's going to be shining like a beacon.
Brian Vostok with the Washington Post. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
And you can see Dom Pedro for yourself, a photograph at least. And there's the link at bbcworldservice.com/Boston Calling. You didn't think we were going to actually give you the gem, did you? I'm Marco Werman, and you're listening to Boston Calling here on the BBC World Service, our weekly look at how America interacts with the world. Later on the program, what the author of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings made of America.
I observe in general that America has always been much more easily kindled than England, or indeed any country in Europe.
Kindled. Now, there's a word you don't hear very often. Stick around to find out what he's talking about. This week marked the 3rd anniversary of the detention in Cuba of an American man named Alan Gross. He was accused by authorities there of illegally distributing restricted communications equipment to members of Cuba's small Jewish community and sentenced to 15 years in prison. Alan Gross had been working as a subcontractor for the U.S. Agency for International Development when he was arrested. Peter Kornblue of the National Security Archive at George Washington University recently visited Alan Gross. Peter told me that Gross was not entirely shocked by his detention.
When he was arrested, one of the things that the Cubans acquired from his baggage was a pen drive that had his previous trip reports on it. He was arrested on his 5th trip to Cuba in 2009, and they make it clear that as his trips progressed, he realized that it was, as he put it, extremely risky business, what he was doing. I asked him what his message to the world would be from the Cuban military hospital where he's being held.
Right, what did he say?
He said, my message is that the United States and Cuba should sit down and talk, and as he put it, tachlis, which is a Yiddish word for truthfully. And, more surprisingly for me, He said that the first meeting should result in a non-belligerency pact being signed between Cuba and the United States. In other words, that Cuba and the United States bury this historical hatchet. And that his point was that if the United States and Cuba can improve the kind of ambience in which they talk to each other, in that context, a resolution of his case can be discussed.
That's a really nice thing for him to be saying, to have these kind of sit-down discussions and to come to some resolution, but this kind of plea appears against the backdrop of charges against him that, the way you describe it, don't seem all that off the mark. And by the way, were any officials in the cell with you or in this room where you met with him?
Let me just paint the picture of our talks. He is being held in a military hospital compound. I passed through some security and was led into a clean little room with 3 couches, and he was sitting there waiting for me, and we spoke uninterrupted for almost 4 hours. I'm sure our conversation was listened to, but nevertheless it was unimpeded. At one point I said to him, God, resolving your case really is what it's going to take to overcome the obstacles towards better U.S.-Cuban relations. And he said to me, Peter, my case is not an obstacle to better U.S.-Cuban relations. Better U.S.-Cuban relations is an obstacle to the resolution of my case. Now, let me just say, one of the key issues that is the obstacle to the resolution of his case is that the Cubans have 5 prisoners of their own in the United States. Cuba wants to trade Alan Gross for their agents.
So is that the kind of roadmap right now? I mean, to the extent that Alan Gross was working for the U.S. government on his trip to Cuba, what then is the U.S. government doing to help him?
There have been some talks behind the scenes over the last 3 years, but the administration has essentially snubbed its nose at the repeated calls by the Cubans for talks. After I saw Alan Gross, I met with Cuban officials, and the message that was conveyed to me was, we are willing to sit down and talk to the United States whenever and wherever, and essentially whatever the agenda of the United States is. And as Alan Gross said to me, I understand that U.S. officials have said that the Cubans aren't serious about talks. And that attitude, he said, on the part of the Obama administration is unacceptable to me.
Peter Kornbluh, senior analyst at the National Security Archive at George Washington University. He met last week with Alan Gross, an American serving 15 years in Cuba. Peter, thanks very much.
Thank you, Marco.
Now, when I was about 8 years old, I did something at the time I considered illicit. I ate my first Twinkie. Its overwhelming burst of sweetness was something I had to keep secret from my health food-obsessed parents. For many Americans, the mass-produced little cream-filled sponge cake is a taste of childhood, but possibly not for much longer. Hostess Brands, which makes the Twinkie, is going out of business, so we wondered if there were any alternatives America could be importing to satisfy its sweet snack food craving. And we didn't need to look any further than Mexico, home of the Twinkie-like Gansito. Rachel Loudon writes a blog on food and food politics.
There's not a grocery store that does not have a large display of Gansitos, little geese,
right,
on their shelves.
So describe the Gansito for us. What does it look like? What does it taste like?
It's a cream-filled sponge. It has a little strawberry jam, or what purports to be strawberry jam, on the top, and then the whole lot is covered with chocolate and chocolate sprinkles. And for Mexican children, it is the treat par excellence.
Right. So what is that all about, and what do you think the whole Twinkie thing is about? Because even tasting a Twinkie today, it's like, oh yeah, that reminds me of my youth, but then it's just way too sweet. What do people see in this, even grown-ups who kind of look back lovingly on the Twinkie? I mean, I assume there are a few of those in Mexico, and the Gansito.
Oh, yes. It's very interesting. It parallels the subculture of the Twinkies and the nostalgia surrounding the Twinkies very closely. They came in the 1950s.
The Gansito did.
Yes,
yeah.
Using the American technology. They associated them strongly with family. They were heavily advertised on early television in Mexico. And of course, for the families, they were sanitary in days when not everything was in Mexico, so they felt very safe giving them to the children. They were an affordable treat. They only cost a very little bit, but it was a little touch of luxury, something out of the ordinary. People remember them and still eat them with great pleasure.
What would happen if the gansito went away? Do you think people would be outraged?
In Mexico? Oh, certainly.
So you lived in Mexico for the past 15 years. What is the one junk food from Mexico that you can't find in Austin or in the U.S. that you actually do miss?
Oh, real chicharron.
That's pork cracklings.
Pork cracklings, but the ones that still have meat on the inside and are freshly fried. Oh, my God.
Oh, my God, indeed. Historian and food blogger Rachel Loudon there. You might have noticed that quite a few stories about food crop up on Boston Calling. That's because they serve so well to illustrate America's global influences and connections, and this next one is no exception. It involves a journey I made last week to New York, birthplace of the New York pizza, the thin and crispy rival to Chicago's spongy deep dish pie. I was in New York principally to see how recovery efforts were coming along in the wake of Superstorm Sandy. The late October storm devastated parts of the city and neighboring New Jersey. And on that trip, I came across a story of one man who is a legend in the history of New York pizza.
His name is Anthony. Totono was his nickname, Piero. And he was the one making the pizzas.
Mr. Pero was New York City's first pizza maker. But a real pizza like Totono's isn't ordered by the slice. It comes by the pie. Just like the pizzas in the city Totono left in 1902 to come to America, Naples, Italy.
Came to Coney Island, and he opens up Totono's in 1924, and we're still here. The longest continuously run, family-owned in the world, unless there's one in Pakistan that I don't know about. Or
that's Antoinette Balzano. She's one of Totono's grandchildren who now run the restaurant. 1 month after Sandy clobbered the Northeast U.S., and Coney Island in particular, Totono's, like the rest of that neighborhood, is still picking up the pieces. On my visit, I couldn't even go into Totono's to see the damage. Fumigators had come the day before to gas out mold and mildew. And besides, Antoinette was rushing to file some papers at makeshift offices along the Coney Island boardwalk.
I'm going to meet now Chantel and Andrew from the governor's office.
It was Antoinette Balzano's first time to the boardwalk since Sandy, and she was surprised that Tom's, a well-known breakfast place at Coney Island, was already back in business. Up and down the boardwalk along the amusement park, sand has gotten pushed all over the place. But there wasn't much evident water damage at Tom's, not the kind that has shut down Totono's.
My friend who lives on 16th Street, he said when he came out, he packed a bag, he was just leaving, and he saw waves coming down the block, which means it's coming from the ocean, and waves coming at him, which is from the creek, and he ran back in because he didn't think he'd make it out of that. So
Antoinette has been so busy figuring out how to get Totono's up and running again, she's barely thought about which way the water came a month ago. Others in New York who value what Totono symbolizes have other concerns, like what's at stake with Totono's survival.
When you first come to New York, if you're interested in pizza, you have to make a pilgrimage to Totono's because it's like going to the Vatican.
That's Ed Levine. He started the foodie website SeriousEats.com. It has a section called Slice, all about pizza, and Ed's also written a book about pizza called Slice of Heaven.
So we have a lot of intel in the pizza world.
About Totono's and where it sits in the evolution of pizza, a number of food critics have said that it is, in this country, the closest you'll ever get in America to Neapolitan pizza. Ed Levine goes even a step further.
I spent a week in Naples when I was researching my pizza book with a Neapolitan friend, so I really got to see Naples, and I think we ate at 25 pizzerias in 5 days or whatever, but this is not Neapolitan pizza, and I would argue that it's actually better.
And why is it better?
There's nothing crispy or crunchy about Neapolitan pizza. It's fairly wet, and used to be they use decent quality olive oil. Now it can be a puddle of sunflower seed oil or some combination oil. And what's great about Neapolitan American pizza is that combination of crisp and tender. And you don't get that with Neapolitan pizza.
But that's precisely what you get at Totono's. It's that taste of the old world improved by the experience of the new world. Antoinette Balzano, her sister, Louise Cookie Cimentieri, their whole family, they all know that that's what makes their place special. And they've overcome a crisis before. Totono suffered a fire in 2009, and the family figures if there is a reason to restart again, it is to preserve one aspect of their Italian heritage, a pizza with a simple crust, fresh mozzarella, and a very hot oven.
I think we have to preserve what Grandpa came here to do.
What do you think he would have made of the flood that came into Coney Island?
That's hysterical, because earlier Cookie said, I don't know what he would have said. He didn't speak English. And since I'm not doing so well in Italian, I'm not sure what he would have said. He probably would have said, so we'll open tomorrow.
We've got a slideshow of the whole Totonno's pizza scene right now on New York's Coney Island. And until Totonno's reopens, those pictures at bbcworldservice.com/Boston Calling might be as good as it's going to get. Our final story this week has to do with the upcoming worldwide release of The Hobbit. Sort of. The film is the first of 3 installments of director Peter Jackson's take on British fantasy writer J.R.R. Tolkien's smash book. As hype over the film builds, so too does concern over the so-called fiscal cliff that's looming just ahead here in the United States. If lawmakers can't reach a deal to avert steep spending cuts and tax increases due to kick off on January 1st, then we go over the fiscal cliff. We didn't have enough staff to cover the Hobbit premiere and the fiscal cliff mess, so we asked reporter Alex Gallifant to take a stab at both. Our apology to Tolkien fans everywhere.
The fiscal cliff is to be found deep in the land of crisis, near the mountains of filibust. To venture there is to leave behind the waters of compromise, to ignore the ship bipartisan. The fiscal cliff is at the end of the known world. All that lies beyond is, well, February. Now, the fiscal cliff may not appear in any of J.R.R. Tolkien's meticulous maps of Middle-earth. Frodo doesn't go there in The Lord of the Rings, and Bilbo doesn't climb it in The Hobbit. There will be no fantastical fiscal cliff rendered in glorious CGI on big screens. But the great wizard Tolkien did have views about America and American values. In 1968, he gave an interview to the BBC.
I observe in general that America has always been much more easily kindled than England, or indeed any country in Europe.
Kindled in the sense of really getting consumed by the stories. Now, Tolkien thought that wasn't necessarily a good thing, according to Christopher Atwood at Indiana University, Bloomington. Tolkien saw his tales as small drops of water amid great oceans of world culture.
And he thought it was so pathetic that people would drink this tiny little drop and get so drunk on it. As he says, a very small drop of water should be so intoxicating, and he thought that was a very sad picture of American life.
America made Tolkien uneasy. Its size, its relentless industry. He despaired at what factories and railways had done to England and saw the same situation, only worse, in the United States.
He really had a sense that something horrible had happened to the American natural environment, that there was something fundamentally out of whack.
Perhaps Tolkien saw us all heading inexorably towards the cliff, fiscal or worse. But that won't matter next month. There will be one movie to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them. The Hobbit will be a blockbuster hit, not really sticking my neck out on that one. But there will no doubt be those who withstand the pull of Middle-earth. It was ever thus. For decades, people haven't just loved Tolkien stories. They've been obsessed with them, not least here in the US. And in 1968, a couple of students from Oxford University took exception to that.
It's an implication of triviality, it's an implication of regression, and the cult of The Hobbit, in America particularly, seems to be responding to this sort of failure in engagement with our political and social situation.
Back then, in the 1960s, homegrown Tolkien clubs sprouted up across America, producing Frodo buttons and others that read Gandalf for president. Actually, Gandalf would be a pretty good president. He's got the height, the magic, the long beard. I mean, at least know what you're talking about before you criticize it, right?
Well, I, of course, haven't actually read Tolkien, but I think it's marvellous. As if I go to a cocktail party or something like this and spent 20 intensely boring minutes talking to a secretary about her father's foot and mouth on the farm. I then ask her, have you read Tolkien? And they always have. And they give you the plot for the next half hour.
If we're going to send anything over the fiscal cliff, can it just be him?
Anything for you, Alex. Our own Alex Gallifant reporting there. If you have any idea what that was about, answers on postcard, please. And I'm sure you'll be relieved to know that that does it for another week. You've been listening to Boston Calling, produced for the BBC by PRI's The World. From me, Marco Werman, and the rest of our team here in Boston. Until next time, when we promise to do just one story at a time, Have a great week.
BBC. As the World Service marks its 80th anniversary, our series of interviews with renowned octogenarian women continues.
You met Mahatma Gandhi, the independent... I did, yes, as a schoolgirl.
The Indian historian Professor Romila Thapar in conversation with Lise Doucette.
I didn't think of myself as a second son. I thought of myself as simply an independent woman.
The Age of Reason, in an hour, on the BBC World Service.
BBC World Service. We report. A private firm is offering tickets to go to the moon. $1.4 billion for 2 people. We discuss.
The duration is going to be between 24 hours and 36 hours, comparable to the Apollo program. And what we envision being accomplished on the moon is going to be science.
BBC World Service, the world's radio station.
BBC World Service, this is James Kimarasamy with NewsHour. Coming up in the next 60 minutes, the fugitive software pioneer John McAfee tells NewsHour why he's trying so hard to avoid returning to Belize.
If I go back, I will certainly be punished for being such a thorn in the side of the existing government. I would certainly expect never to get out of jail.
An agreement is reached to extend the Kyoto Agreement on global warming for another 8 years. A defiant message from the political leader of Hamas as the militant Palestinian group marks its 25th anniversary.
There is no legitimacy for occupation. Hence, there is no legitimacy for Israel, however long time lasts.
And what dramatic role does your face fit? First, the main news in detail.
BBC News with David Austin. Almost 200 nations at UN climate talks in Qatar have agreed to extend until 2020 the only legally binding agreement for combating global warming, the Kyoto Protocol. The treaty had been due to expire at the end of this month. Roger Harrabin reports.
There were cheers from delegates for the Qatari chairman, a former head of the oil cartel OPEC. He emerged as an unlikely hero when he ruthlessly crushed a Russian attempt to delay the conference in a wrangle for better terms. It's been a long fortnight, with diplomats tidying up remnants of the existing Kyoto Climate Protocol to clear the path for negotiations on a new deal, binding rich and poor nations alike in tackling climate change. That's due to be signed by 2015. One landmark move was an agreement acknowledging the need to recompense poor nations for irreparable damage.
The former Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi has confirmed that he'll attempt to return to power at the general election to be held next year. He told reporters he was worried about the impact of the economic policies being brought in by the current government. Alan Johnston reports.
Over the last few days, it became clear that Mr. Berlusconi would be attempting a comeback, and now he's confirmed it. Speaking to reporters in Milan, he said he was returning to the front line of party politics out of a sense of responsibility to the country. However, Mr. Berlusconi's many opponents will see his effort to return to power in a cynical light. They'll argue that he is simply intent on staying in the political game in order to be able to defend his personal, business and other interests.
The Egyptian military has warned of disastrous consequences if the rival political forces in the country fail to resolve their differences through dialogue. The statement was made on national television. From Cairo, John Line.
This is the first time the Egyptian military has expressed an opinion in the current crisis, though tanks are already stationed outside the presidential palace. The wording of the military statement immediately provoked fears that the military would intervene and take power, as it did after the fall of Hosni Mubarak. Sources close to the military have been quick to stress that is not about to happen. And a senior official from the ruling Muslim Brotherhood also welcomed the statement, describing it as balanced and neutral. However, state media have already reported that President Morsi may be about to give the military new powers to help the police maintain order.
Tens of thousands of Palestinians have given a rapturous reception to the leader of Hamas, Khaled Mishal, at a rally in Gaza to mark the 25th anniversary of the militant movement. Addressing the crowd from a stage with a huge model of a Hamas rocket towering behind it, Mr. Mishal ruled out any territorial concessions or recognition of Israel and called for Palestinian unity. It's Mr. Mishal's first visit to Palestinian territory in nearly 40 years. World News from the BBC. The Pakistani President Asif Ali Zardari has called the Pakistani schoolgirl Malala Yousafzai a remarkable girl and a credit to his country. He was speaking during a visit to a hospital in Britain where she's been receiving specialist medical care since October. Malala Yousafzai was shot in the head by the Taliban in an attempt to silence her campaign to promote women's education in northwest Pakistan. The former South African President Nelson Mandela has been admitted to hospital in Pretoria. The office of the current president, Jacob Zuma, said Mr. Mandela was doing well and there was no cause for alarm. Andrew Harding reports from Johannesburg.
The 94-year-old veteran of South Africa's struggle against apartheid is undergoing tests at a hospital in Pretoria. There's no information yet about what prompted his admission today. The presidency said only that Mr. Mandela would receive medical attention from time to time, consistent with his age. It's almost 2 years since Mr. Mandela's unexpected hospitalisation with a respiratory infection triggered a major health scare. In February of this year, the presidency warned the public in advance that Mr. Mandela was undergoing abdominal surgery.
Polls have finally closed in Ghana after voting was extended into a second day because of technical problems. A new biometric system based on electronic fingerprints suffered breakdowns and caused delays. President John Dramani Mahama, who replaced the late John Atta Mills after his death in July, is competing against his main rival, Nana Akufo-Addo. North Korea says it might reconsider the schedule for a planned rocket launch. Earlier this week, Pyongyang said it would carry out a long-range rocket test between the 10th and the 22nd of December after a similar test failed in April. No specific reasons for a possible postponement have been given, but experts say preparations for the launch may have been delayed by a heavy snowfall. And those are the latest stories from BBC News.
You're listening to the BBC World Service. I'm James Kamarasamy, and this is News Hour. And coming up later on in the programme, the man who's just quit as head of Egyptian state television compares censorship now to censorship under President Mubarak.
I think it's worse. Yes, during the Mubarak era we couldn't talk about certain subjects, but we wouldn't receive hour-by-hour instructions or questions about guest selection. The current government lacks media expertise.
And what kind of acting role would my face fit? It appears the answer's in the post.
You would make the perfect postman.
Typecast before my acting career has even started. Find out why later on. We know with this strange tale of the millionaire software pioneer John McAfee, who invented the ubiquitous antivirus program which bears his name.